Welcome to the Midcoast Community Council meeting of March 12th, 2014. Will the council members introduce themselves, starting on my left?
Dave Olson.
Dan Haggerty.
Lisa Ketchum.
Laura Stein.
Chris Johnson.
The first item on the agenda is the Board of Supervisors report, and this evening we have Sarah Rosendahl, Supervisor Horsley's aide.
Thank you, Lisa. I just have one quick announcement. Supervisor Horsley wanted me to let the group know that on April 12th, the Environmental Health Department is doing a household hazardous waste cleanup event in Half Moon Bay. And they've been doing it for quite a while. It's pretty traditionally done then. What we're doing this year is doing some special outreach to the households, specifically in Princeton. I think, as the group knows, Dawn's particularly interested in cleaning up and enabling the residents to clean up in that area. So this is residential only, but folks in Princeton will be getting also just a direct mailer to let them know that this event is happening. It's completely open to anyone countywide, but certainly anyone on the coast who wants to go, but just wanted to let you know that. So that is, it's in Half Moon Bay. That's a very good question. Yes, I think it is at the school. And what I'll do is I'll send a link to Lisa so she can post it.
Which school?
Let me send a link to Lisa to post it. That's so funny. Yeah, it is. And I didn't want to say for sure because I think that's right. So I'll make sure Lisa gets a link.
Okay.
Did we have a date? I didn't
April
hear.
12th.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's really all I wanted to bring to the group.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Could I ask just one question?
You can ask.
It's related to
Okay.
this.
Yeah.
Is that it was my understanding that hardware stores should accept the compact fluorescent lights. We should not be putting those in the garbage can. And so during the year when the hazardous waste is not, pickup is not as easy as it will be on April. Where should the common household member dispose of these?
You know, I actually don't know, and I can find out if the hardware stores are required to do that. I mean, personally, what I do is I just have a place I keep them.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
Anytime during the year, you can also make an appointment to go to Tower Road, which is it's actually pretty convenient to you. It's just off 92, and you can make an appointment just to do a drop-off, and you'll drive in and open your trunk, and they'll take any of the things that they will take on the 12th.
Okay.
So you can do that. I don't know about the law and the hardware stores.
Just occurred to me.
But I just know that I have a bin that I dump it all in, and a couple times a year I drive up there. It's really easy. So.
And I'll remember, I'll write a note to ask them the day of the event too. They'll
Well, and
probably know that.
I'll write a note to get back to you on that too.
Thank you, Sarah.
Sure.
And Ocean Shore takes them.
It does take
Yeah.
the light bulbs.
Thank you. So item 2 on the agenda is public comment, and I have a speaker slip from Neil Merrilees.
Hi, Neil Merrilees. I'm here to speak on one issue 2 times, trees. And that is, as many people know, the Parks Department came up with a plan to trim and thin the trees in Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. And they got a lot of input from the public from that. And because of that input that came to the Parks Commission too, the Parks Commission voted to recommend that the parks do some more community outreach. So more community outreach will be occurring. I don't have a date or a place for a meeting, but in any case, nothing will happen very fast on that issue. They heard the public loud and clear, and so that is going to be ongoing. And anybody who's interested in that, stay interested. And you know, something probably has to be done. It's a matter of to do what and what needs to be done. And so anyway, just stay interested, and the Parks Department wants to know what you have to say about it. And then the second issue about the same subject is not coming from the Parks Commission. It's coming as a Moss Beach neighbor As everybody knows, the Parks Department took over Moss Beach Park, and they're planning some upcoming improvements. The bathroom is coming. I'm not going to say when, because I've said when too many times, but it is coming. And something else that's coming is there are 2 pine trees kind of up where where the bathroom is going to go, and they both have a horrible case of pine pitch canker. If you look at them, they're dripping all over the place. One of them, it looks like it's really dying. The other one looks a little healthier, but as you get closer, it's diseased. So those 2 pine trees are scheduled to come out. It's something that the Moss Beach Park Group wanted to do, but it's hard to get permits to take out trees. So this is an example of how great it is that the Parks Department took over this. They can get the permit, and they can fix this problem. And then the other issue for the community is what to do in terms of planting new trees. Whether we want to plant cypress trees or whatever trees, and hopefully we can talk about that at the Midcoast Council meeting at an upcoming date. But I wanted people that care about trees to know that these trees were not being taken out without a lot of thought, but they are diseased, and they are coming out. So if anybody has any problems with that, they could call me, or they could call the Parks Department and leave a message about the trees at Moss Beach Park. But anyway, they will be coming out. So thank you.
Thanks, Neil. Gail Erickson?
I'm here talking about a meeting. It's just an announcement for a meeting that's going to be held in Half Moon Bay on March 17th. And this is sponsored by AAUW, the American Association of University Women. And we have a speaker who's coming to talk about an organization called Next Door Solutions. And this is what they call Next Door Solutions, Solutions to Domestic Violence. And this is an organization that tries to help women, mostly women who are in a domestic relationship that is violent or they're being hurt. And this is going to be on Monday, March 17th at 777 Miramontes Avenue. It's the Community United Methodist Church. And it's from 7 to 9, and it is free, and everybody is welcome. And I've got some post-its, flyers outside you can pick up if you'd like to have them.
What time is that, Gail?
It's going to start at 7 o'clock.
Thanks, Gail. Len Erickson?
Thank you, council members. I just wanted to make note of the fact that we all know the Devil's Slide Trail will open soon, if not this Friday or Saturday soon. And the point I wanted to call attention to is that there are any number of concerns about the impact of opening the trail. There's an article in today's Half Moon Bay Review about that. My comment is just one to the council in planning future agendas. I'd like to see us have a systematic way that within the next MCC meeting after the tunnel or the slide opens, just to have a way for the county to give us a report on the various conditions, traffic congestion, crossing turns, etc., impact of no trail way up from the south, not in the sense of new discovery, but just what metrics can we have to look at so we know how we're faring in these things, and that's something I'd like to encourage you to do.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, I'll close the public comment. Oh, wait. Do any council members have announcements to make? Dave?
Yeah, I have 2 announcements. On March 20th, Thursday, March 20th, from 7 to 9, the City of Half Moon Bay is having a community workshop on visions, issues, and perspectives. I believe it's open to people that are not residents of Half Moon Bay. They're looking for perspectives on the community. Also, on Saturday, March 13th, this coming Saturday, there's a bridge scoping meeting on the Half Moon Bay Bridge issue, which most people are probably aware of. There's now 2 competing measures proposed for the June ballot. That's from, that's at 10 a.m. And both of those meetings are at the Ops Center on Kelly Avenue.
Don't we have an announcement?
What was the time on the March 20th?
That is from 7 to 9 p.m.
Okay, I have one announcement from the County Airports Manager, Gretchen Kelly. Dream Machines will be a one-day event this year on Sunday, April 27th. There will be no motorized activities such as a demolition derby, monster trucks, or go-karts due to FAA concerns. Okay, so
I have one. I'm sorry. Coastside Design Review Committee is, look, we have 2 openings in Montera. You may have seen the flyers at your post office and about town. Even if you are not interested, if you know somebody who might have an interest, please pass on the information. And there's more information on the Midcoast Community Council, wow, it's a wild town, El Granada, on the Midcoast Community Council website.
Anybody else? Dan?
So I've been going to the Harbor Commission meetings, and I just wanted to report that at the last meeting, there was a suggestion to put on the agenda to bring back PCTV, the video recordings. So the next meeting will be in South San Francisco next Wednesday at 6 p.m. I encourage anybody that can make it to join. That's all.
Okay, now I'll close public comment. And are there any requested changes to the agenda? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
The consent agenda is approved unanimously. Okay, so onto our regular agenda, item 4A is Plan Princeton Existing Conditions Report. County staff and project consultants will give a presentation on Phase 2 of the multi-year Princeton area land use planning and zoning update, followed by a question and answer period. This is an informational item, and the council will take no action this evening. Summer, are you going to start it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. My name is Summer Burleson. I'm a project planner with the San Mateo County Planning and Building Department, and just want to give a little brief introduction before we get started in the presentation. Since our last visit to the Midcoast Community Council, which was during our community visioning phase of the Plan Princeton project, where we were doing a bunch of outreach. We did some community-wide surveys and held a public workshop and did some stakeholder interviews. That phase resulted in a community visioning report, which has been out for a while now. It's posted on the website, www.planprinceton.com, and we would encourage anybody that hasn't been to the project website or seen that community visioning report to please go online and check it out. And you can also sign up for e-blasts to keep updated with the project. So for anybody that hasn't checked out the website, that's a great way to keep up to date with things. So since that, the community visioning phase, we've moved into the existing conditions phase, or the background studies phase, which is where we're at now and why we're here tonight. The background phase is really looking at existing conditions as well as trends in the study area, and putting those into an existing conditions report that is currently being finalized. But that report will identify both the existing conditions and also where we'll identify opportunities and constraints in the area that we'll be able to carry forward to the next phase. That will, and that next phase will be the alternatives phase, where we'll be drafting up alternative options for the plan. And based on the community outreach phase and this existing conditions phase, we'll take those two efforts and move into the alternatives phase. And at that point, once we have some conceptual alternatives, we'll come back to the public, come back to the Midcoast Community Council, and we'll want to get public feedback on that. But right now, as I mentioned, we're at the existing conditions phase. We are finalizing a report, and we wanted to take the opportunity tonight to be able to come and provide you with an overview of what we've identified as far as existing conditions, opportunities, and constraints for the area. So we are looking to finalize the report in April, and then we would be taking it to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors as well, to provide them an update, which is what we're doing at every kind of milestone phase. And then also providing an update to the Coastal Commission at their May meeting that will be in the Bay Area. So that's kind of where we're at and where we're heading. And Martha Miller with Diet and Bhatia, the project consultant, is here tonight, and she will be taking us through a presentation overview of the existing conditions phase. So, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. As Summer said, I'll be giving kind of an overview and a primer of what will be in the existing conditions report, kind of get you excited about that coming out and looking forward to it. But whenever we start, I like to kind of have a reminder of what brought us here. And when the county initiated Plan Princeton, it was with a number of objectives: enhancing coastal access, supporting the coastal dependent uses, protecting water quality and the environment, complying with the State Coastal Act, and other objectives on the screen. And as we went into the community visioning process, that was largely echoed from members of the community through the survey, through the workshops, and through interviews that we had with people. So now as we look at where the community wants to go, we need to understand where we are and how we can bridge that gap. And that's really the point of the existing conditions report and the background studies phase that we're in. And as Summer said, next we will take that information, develop some choices, some different alternatives, work through those with the community, and then in developing the plan, and then moving forward for adopting that plan. So these are the chapters within the existing conditions report, and I'll go through a little overview of each one, beginning first with the land use and urban design, and looking at what the different land uses in the planning area are. Primarily the airport, which takes up a large chunk of the land. Open space is a significant area as well. Commercial in this area of large, kind of a range of uses in the Princeton area here, but a large part of it being industrial, storage, and some marine related. And then it goes in and talks about the different characteristics that exist throughout the area. Along Capistrano Road, the commercial businesses, restaurants and lodging, the waterfront with the harbor and related development, in that kind of industrial waterfront area, primarily these warehouse industrial uses with some single-family homes interspersed, the Pillar Ridge community, and the large areas of open space, which are the agriculture areas, the beaches, the bluff, and so on. And then there's a discussion of the regulatory background, so the key regulatory documents that really impact or affect development in the area, including the general plan, the Midcoast LCP, the airport compatibility plan, and the zoning ordinance. Generally, the general plan land use designations largely kind of mirror what you see on the ground as existing uses. The entire area is within the coastal zone and subject to consistency with the Coastal Act. The light blue portions are what's the coastal appealable zone. So any development proposed there is subject to appeal by the Coastal Commission. And airport compatibility is addressed in the report, and this has been a big issue because of the airport overlay zone, which the current boundaries affect this area in here, and that's on the current airport, based on the current airport safety zones. And that limits the amount of people that can be on a site at a certain time, or the intensity, because the whole idea is not to have a lot of people where an airplane may crash. The airport currently is updating their plan, land use plan, and the safety zones. And so what you see in green are the safety zones in the draft plan that's out. And that significantly increases the areas that are subject to an airport safety zone criteria, which has some limitations on intensity of uses as well. So we're going to have to be paying close attention to that and making sure that the uses and the loud intensities kind of work together with that. So that's an important piece that we'll be working through with the community and the airport. In the existing zoning, as many of you know, the areas of commercial recreation here, the waterfront area, the current zoning does have different uses which are allowed near the shoreline versus inland, and with those near the shoreline being much more restrictive. But when we look at what's actually on the ground, we see that there's this mix of industrial warehouse kind of uses throughout, and it doesn't necessarily mirror what seems to be intended through the zoning ordinance. So that kind of leads us to think, you know, maybe we need to rethink what uses are allowed and try and have a more natural fit with the zoning ordinance. The second chapter looks at the fishing, boating, and visitor serving needs, kind of the market, the economic and market conditions that will really drive kind of use demand in the area. And as I'm sure you're all aware that, you know, commercial fishing and seafood processing is so important in this area, and it's a significant fishing port in the Bay Area. But it's a narrow margin business, and the seafood related businesses are unlikely to be a major expansion area. So while it may be very strong, primarily because of the crab and the direct to consumer sales, it's not likely to grow much. But there are certainly opportunities for that small scale, kind of that niche market here, where Princeton really shines at. Through the visioning and talking to community members, there was really kind of a desire for more infrastructure to really support the fishing, like boat haul outs and things like that. But looking at what the real constraints are, the primary constraints are the natural resource constraints. So while some infrastructure may help with the fishing industry, it's not likely to be able to overcome what nature does to limit the fishing industry. It's just something to be kind of aware of, that the natural resource constraints are the main constraint. Sorry?
What are they?
The regulations on how much you can fish, the availability of things to fish.
There are no fish, is that what you're saying?
Or there are none. Where there is a lot of potential for growth and a lot of demand is industrial zone land, and it really is the only industrial zone land between Pacifica and Half Moon Bay. This is a key location along the coastside. Tourism is also something that has a lot of potential, and the area is very well positioned for the things exactly like what I saw tonight when I was coming here. You know, just the beautiful area, the recreational activities, and just a real visitor serving area. Agriculture, because agriculture in the coastal zone is so important, we looked at this, and while agriculture is very important to the area, it's more of a character type thing than really being a key economic driver here. So it's not really an in-demand land use, but certainly adds to the character of the area. Then looking at environmental resources and going through natural resources, water quality, visual, and cultural is the next chapter, and looking at what types of habitats are in the study area and mapping those and identifying which are sensitive and have special considerations or protections. And some of them are identified here, and as what really kind of makes sense is they're typically in the areas outside, you know, where it's not currently developed. The water quality, the Princeton area currently lacks stormwater treatment facilities, but the area is subject to a lot of regulations for stormwater. Not only the county's pollution prevention permit that it has, but also through the Midcoast LCP, there were additional standards that were applied specific to the coastal area. But these are things that are typically required with new development. And because you haven't had much new development, these haven't gotten implemented. So there's a lot of regulation and requirements for it, but they just haven't been implemented yet.
So are you saying they will be, or they're just,
Should new development come forward, that would be a requirement of the new development.
I see.
Looking at the visual character and the resources in the area, there's really different character, kind of different zones of visual character that are identified and have different characteristics and considerations. And then with visual resources, we're really kind of thinking about two things. Number one is that protection of the visual resources, the harbor, the surrounding hills, and then the other part is maintaining character. So that defining character, and what we've heard a lot from the community is the eclecticness, the small scale kind of maritime village that really should be preserved and maintained. And looking at what the critical viewing areas are, both in some of these corridors, the gateways of the community, and then some of these key areas, these vacant parcels here, which are really identified as, if they were to be developed, that the visual concerns should be taken into consideration. And that is looked at as one of the things to be aware of moving forward. Some other things to think about is, what type of development defines the character that should be maintained and enhanced here. And maybe it's not the large-scale development, but some of the smaller scale development. And then some other considerations that affect the visual quality, parked cars along Highway 1, some berms, overhead utility lines tend to add some visual clutter. Cultural resources, always a sensitive subject, but much of the study area has already been surveyed for various reasons, and as you can imagine, Native Americans tended to gather near water in areas like this, so there's several important resources in the area. The next section's on the natural hazards and shoreline erosion, looking at the geologic hazards, which really aren't factors in the vast majority. It's more along the coastline there. Seismic hazards, there are several faults to be aware of for seismic events. And then areas of liquefaction typically associated with the marsh and in the shoreline. Much of Princeton is in a tsunami hazard zone, so there's considerations to be made for the types of construction and buildings in the area, but also primarily evacuation and early warning. And then also being aware of the flood zones and addressing those potential impacts. Shoreline protection is an important consideration, and the report really looks at the different characteristics of the shoreline in this area. And the main, a big concern is the encroachment of development in this area, the Princeton shoreline, and the need or the existence of shoreline protection systems. And there's a number of unpermitted or non-engineered shoreline protection structures, which, if not dealt with, little or no beach will remain. And so a number of alternatives have been developed to provide protection in incorporating public access, and that's have been done through the Harbor District and some efforts of the county. So we summarize those, and moving forward into the alternatives, we'll still be looking at whether those are still relevant, or how to address shoreline protection and coastal access in the plan moving forward. Natural hazards, wildfire, it's generally mapped at risk primarily to the urban and wildland interface. There's also some considerations with fire and hazardous materials because of the industrial nature of the area as well. With circulation and parking and coastal access, looking at vehicles, bicycles, pedestrian transit, parking, coastal access, altogether with the motor vehicles, the big concerns being congestion on Highway 1, particularly major events and weekends, which is of no surprise to anyone on the coast side. With bicycles and pedestrians, there's generally a lack of support facilities, lack of the sidewalks, signage, alternative routes. Transit, when we started the existing conditions report, there were 2 bus routes. Now you're down to 1, so things aren't getting better, they're getting a little worse, but some difficulties is just the amount of people being served in this area and the concentration of people. Parking's tough. We heard a lot about that there wasn't adequate parking, particularly on large events and weekends, but also sometimes during the day or on non-event days and weekends. What we found looking at is that there's often parking, but it may not be available to everyone. It may be associated with a certain business or not just open general to the public. But there's also some efficiencies in being able to find the parking, or if it's located at the right where people want to go, and so on. So parking will be a big consideration moving forward, looking at where are the places people want to go, and what parking facilities are there. And if there is parking, do people know about it, and can they get to it? Coastal access, there's a number of coastal access points, but improvements are needed, and there's a number of studies that have talked about plans and suggested improvements, and the report goes through and works to summarize them all together, and whether it's improving access at Broadway and Vassar, the LCP, which includes a number of recommendations for the beach and bluff north of Pillar Point Radar Station, for the beaches, Johnson Pier and the beach, and then some recommendations for improvements such as to the parking lots, improving the lots, the signs, providing amenities such as toilets.
Amenities such as
It's an important amenity.
That particular bathroom facility is not an amenity.
So this is really bringing forward what has been in other plans for, so people are aware, and it's kind of put in one place as far as what's been considered up to this point. And then finally, with infrastructure, public services and facilities, looking at the water, the storm drain, sanitary sewer systems, the water being, there's 2 kind of districts that serve water in the area: Montara Water and Sanitary District and the Coastside County Water District. Montara just recently had their public works plan approved by the Coastal Commission, which they do have some water available. Both the Montara Water and Sanitary District and Coastside County Water have reserved water capacity for what's called priority uses under the Coastal Act, and those are typically ones that are coastal dependent related, kind of maritime uses, visitor serving uses, these ones that the Coastal Act gives priority to along the coast. So MWSD has water for priority uses and also has water for non-priority uses. Coastside County Water District is a little more complicated in that so the water district does have some water connections available for priority uses. They do not have any water service connections available for non-priority uses. However, there are about 24 non-priority water connections in private ownership that people have, but they just haven't used yet, and those could be traded. So in order to get water, if you're in the Coastside County Water District, for a non-priority use, you would have to find someone with an available connection and use that. So any further expansion of water service capacity is really tied to some requirements in the Midcoast LCP. Primarily levels of service on highways 1 and 92. So during the Midcoast LCP, what Coastal said was, you know, we don't want new development contributing to this already bad problem that you have on 1 and 92, so you need to really address those issues, which the county is embarking on a transportation management program to look at dealing with that. The storm drainage system primarily is flow overland into the street gutters and swales, and you can see there's some conveyance issues at times, and that's primarily demonstrated by some localized flooding or, you know, standing water after the rains. The sewer system is Montero Water and Sanitary District and Granada Sanitary District. Same with water. The sewer capacity system also has capacity reserved for priority uses. The sewer capacity is not as limiting, though, as the water capacity. So this is much less of an issue in the area. And they have ongoing problems to maintain the systems and primarily aimed at conveyance. And then the public services and facilities, generally there's an adequate level of service. There's some kind of modernization improvements that could be done with the schools. And then there's no libraries or community centers in Princeton, which I don't think is a surprise or news to anybody. That's an overview of what is in the report, and you know, I hope this has whetted your appetite and got you really excited about reading it. So, is there any questions that anybody had on? Yeah.
Actually, you have to. Dave, you want to go first? So in the area of increasing public access to different beach areas, one of my primary concerns about that is an increase in access equals an increase in use, which equals an increase in trash. So what I would like to find out is are some considerations being made in terms of how will that get mitigated? People bring their picnic lunch now down to the beach, and then they leave their trash behind. Who's cleaning that up? I mean, are there trash cans coming in? Is there going to be regularly scheduled trash pickup? So that's something that's I would consider to be kind of a
part of that program.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a question on the agriculture. I am guessing you didn't expect an expansion of agriculture? It sort of sounded like you were saying agriculture was not going to be important. Was that the intent?
It's not important, or it's not considered to be a major driver of land use demand, but it's important in the community as far as defining character and as a coastal resource.
Okay, so demand meaning an increase.
Right, where someone wants to come in and...
Yeah, because the agriculture that's there is important.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
I have a comment. This may already be in your report, but I would like to point out that when you do park in Princeton, it's so dark that it's very frightening as to your foothold. If anybody's, I'm assuming the streets will be made more pedestrian friendly, but in the meantime, it's really dark.
That's an interesting, there's no lighting district in Princeton. I don't know if that feeds into your report.
Yeah, that's certainly something that should get
There's no
addressed.
lighting district on Airport Street. The lighting district ends at around Denniston Creek, I think. And so Princeton is dark except for private lighting. Airport Street is dark, and then there is some street lighting on Cypress.
So you have urban used on 5 pages of this report, and I just want to respectfully and politely object to the use of urban. I moved to this area, as many others moved to this area, because this is of the rural feeling. And I took a pledge to protect the rural feeling of this area for the community. So, just wanted to say that, and I wanted to hope that any thoughts of urban form would just be like, diluted is all could possibly be. You mentioned the infrastructure as opposed to, for instance, the boat haul out, that, maybe it's not so significant because of the certain regulations. I hope that regulations and conditions will change through, they always go up and down, but hopefully we can get a handle and get that ocean healthy again so that they will. So I would like to have that, the positive plan, thinking that this working harbor is going to get more and more healthy each year.
Dan, where are you seeing urban?
The numbers are not, the pages are not numbered, but it's in about 3 or 4 pages in. And,
Well, it's kind of important, because I can't,
okay.
Well, so here,
one,
we're talking about
2, third page in on the backside?
There you go.
Third page in from the top. You see it on the top, the title, urban form?
oh, this is what you're talking about, is the section labeled urban form.
Yes, this is.
It's the
Right.
type of buildings, you're talking about the type of
Developed or
buildings.
something
built
else
form.
would probably be more appropriate for our environment than urban.
I mentioned visual resources and the fact that well, we have a large hotel that blocked some people's views, and I do like to, including my own, I like to reference that what is left should somehow be compensated, considered, and for the loss that we probably won't go backwards on. But I want, since we're talking about visual resources, there's a big white tent that goes up and down, it seems like every year. I don't know, I'm not sure if this is the right place to direct it, but it is in Princeton. I don't know if it's part of the plan or not, but I have an issue with it. Specifically blocking visual resources. And on the auto congestion, I think my opinion is that it is what it is, and the 2-lane system will regulate how many people come. I am very much against making any adjustments that would try to do a fix-up here in a certain location and would just cause congestion in another part of our beautiful area. So I'll just say that. That's all the comments I have.
Anyone else on the council?
I actually do just have 2 more quickie things. So the first is on the shoreline protection.
Your mic.
Oh, sorry. On the shoreline protection pages. I was just curious, like one of the things you called out was unpermitted and/or non-engineered shoreline protection structures. How does that get viewed? In other words, are some structures grandfathered in and it's just like, oh, well, we let those sort of stay as they are? Or along with the development plan, do they need to be like retrofitted? Will there be some kind of, do you know what I mean, like call to action in terms of the owners?
Right, and that would be not something that we're dealing with. That would be an action that the county or the coastal commission would take, the body that has the permitting authority over that. What we'll be looking at through this plan is an area-wide shoreline management program for that. But as far as enforcement actions that are taken or deemed to taken, that would be the county or the coastal commission.
Okay, and then just my second one real quick is, a couple of times you referred to the lack of the water treatment facility or resources. And is that just something you're sort of looking at, or is there that's a part of the plan, like we know we need to have this?
The plan would look at the capacity and maybe improvements that would need to be made. Again, though, with some of that, there is the regulations and the policies in place, but without anything happening here, they don't get implemented.
Okay, thanks.
I have one last question. Could you tell me how, with this project, you will be interacting or interfacing with the Harbor District? It seems like you certainly would have some overlap.
Well, we're not overlapping their jurisdiction, but the Harbor District does have a representative on the steering committee, and we're working with the Harbor District to ensure that the two really kind of complement and recognize and work with, you know, what they're thinking about and then what's contemplated here. And also, I mean, I would say that not only the Harbor District, but the community at large as well.
That was a very political answer.
Thank you.
I'm teasing.
And I have one last, the issue about the non-priority water use being traded to the priority water use, how and why was that decided that that's okay?
Oh, what I was referring to was not that you could change priority for non-priority. You could change, you mean the people who have uninstalled priority or uninstalled non-priority water connections can trade them. There's a program where they can trade.
Yes. Yes.
Just reporting it. It's not a recommendation of any kind, it's just a report.
Oh yeah, that's something that the district has in place. That's their program.
Okay, that's always been that way?
I don't know when that started, but it's allowed under the current Public Works Plan permit that they're working with under coastal.
Okay, I'll look into that.
A lot of that has gone on in the past. Okay, so I'll take public questions from the public. Bill Kehoe is first. After Bill, Catherine.
Thank you, council members, urban planner, and also thank you to the county employees who drove all the way over here on a free evening. I appreciate it. So when I first saw this, I didn't realize, I was looking all over for the report, and then at some point caught on that the report isn't out there yet. But I still had just a lot of problems with some of the assumptions I saw in here. And I'm hoping that there's going to be actual data in the report that would substantiate the claims that you're making. And I'd like to start out and point out a few of them to you right now, and hopefully you can tell me, oh, it's all in the report, just hold on, it'll be out in a few weeks. Commercial fishing, seafood processing, and distribution slide. Oh, and I agree with Dan. When you give out slides, could you put a slide number on them? Because it's much quicker when you only got 3 minutes to talk to just say slide number 3 than the whole title. I kind of really disagree with the seafood-related business expansion is unlikely to major economic drivers. I mean, that's true of every business in the world, right? And that will go up and down depending on how the resources are and the rest of it. And also how clever the business people are in expanding what the current business is. So I'd like to know what you really used to come up with that one bullet line there. I noticed that you didn't mention anything about the salmon season, which is very popular in the harbor and drives a lot of money to the fishermen. You mentioned nothing about the chartered boats. And if you look at other harbors, there's all sorts of ancillary type of things that could be done. So as I went through this, I saw the fishing industry being short-shifted in this, and I heard the community specifically say that that's not what they wanted. I also thought that that one bullet, I mean, just kill it. On the next slide, major processors and wholesalers no longer need to be located near the ocean. Well, yeah, I mean, you know, with modern transportation, they could ship it to Chico and have it processed there if they wanted to, but that makes no sense. And I'll tell you, one of the things about this harbor that's really important to the tourism out here is the fact that it is one of the few working harbors all along the Northern California coast. And that's what draw people here. We don't have a Ferris wheel, we don't have a water slide, we have a fishing port. And people come here to look at the boats, to smell the fish, to eat, and whatever. So, you know, don't kill the goose that lays the golden egg.
Absolutely.
And that's what people want. Then I see you driving towards a couple of things. One is heavy industry, actually medium to light industry. And, you know, I don't know, maybe it is the only place on the coast side where some of this stuff can be done. I think there's other areas as well. But I don't see that as a prime mover any more than I see agriculture or some of the other things. So again, what are you using to make this prediction? I assume there's data out there. So I really want to see that. Tourism. Tourism is enjoying a strong comeback from the recent recession. I don't know, I must be missing it. I don't see it. I do know that when they built this huge hotel, that they promised the county 1.5 million minimum a year in TOT, transient occupancy tax. They have never reached $1 million. Go check your records. So I don't see that as a major driver, and I'd really like to know what the TOT was for last year. You do have that, but that should tell you whether or not you've got tourism coming back. In fact, actually, I'd like to see a trending line over the past 10 years. You should have it, because that's how long the thing's been sitting there. I do like the picture of the mall empty. That's the way it looks every time I've been over there. So, and the other thing, when you talk about, on a later slide, and then I'll leave it at this, but these are all the little flaws in here that I would like to see addressed in detail. On the latest slide, when you're talking about the consistency of the Princeton streets and all that, you do show a similar picture to the one I was just holding up of the big hotel. That's one of only like 2-3-story building in the whole Midcoast. And I'll tell you, it's very unfriendly from the street. You've got this big sheer gray wall above you going 3 stories. There's no street level businesses to make it walker friendly or attractive to anybody coming in. It's like this fortress on the hill that all the people that stay in the hotel can look out and down at the harbor parking lot. It just doesn't fit. Do not use that as the model for what Princeton is. If you go just a little bit north on Capistrano before you get to Prospect, you'll see lots of one-story little buildings, all fanciful little colors, doing different types of things, from selling trinkets to a restaurant or what have you. And that is more typical of what Princeton is all about. We don't need a big monolith there that looks like it, landed on a spacecraft. So what I've heard in the meeting so far, and I don't see a strong reflection in this report, is that it's a fishing harbor, a fishing village, and everything should be focused on the fishing. And then ancillary to that will be the tourism and light industrial to support the fishing and some of the agriculture, because that's what goes on here. Anything else is going to be kind of a fake implant that probably won't take. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Catherine?
Thank you. I've got a bunch of sort of separate comments. I will point out for the record that Bill was on the Midcoast Community Council, and I'm speaking as a member, or as an individual, but I am a member of the board for Montero Water and Sanitary District, and I was also on the Midcoast Community Council and was on the Planning and Zoning Committee for a god-awful amount of time. And I want to thank Dan and the council for your comments. I think they're all relevant and very important. You talked about the various community or plans that have bearing on this. There's an old one that's mentioned in the local coastal program called the Community Plan, Montero Moss Beach Alvinata Community Plan. It is its own document, and it stands separate, but is incorporated into the local coastal program. I'd be happy to photocopy it and get it to you, but it can also be found online. And it is an old document, but it is consistent with what you're going to hear tonight. The hotel that Bill was just talking about was designed by Westinghouse. When it was going to be somewhere I have the community plan from that, where everything from Clipper Ridge up to the south side of Montero Moss Beach was going to be a subdivision. And the whole of Princeton was going to be a large commercial subdivision, like a mall. And this is the one piece that got put in. So it's not really characteristic of what people are looking at. We need public restrooms. The businesses can't be expected to take care of the needs of the public for their toilet and bathroom uses. Somebody mentioned trash. We also need debris cleanup. With tourists comes litter. And also, there is a serious crime problem in Princeton right now. I have friends who have businesses there. So there is a serious crime problem now when you have more visitor cars parked there. You're going to have more car break-ins like are occurring at Montero Beach and in other places. I think we need to be careful of that. And parking needs to be carefully addressed. We don't want this to look like a parking lot. But it is very important. Well, let me go back. You ruled out with your use of language fishing and agriculture as producing income for the area, and you kind of left tourism as the only thing that appears to be viable. And I found that subtle, but very powerful. Sabrina Brennan is here, and we were communicating, and she mentioned to me that the cost of offloading fish at the harbor is so high that many fishermen actually offload in other places now. And so when you're doing your data collection, you need to be looking at these other fish that they would prefer to offload here. But because the harbor district charges so much, fishermen, with the price of gas and everything else, have to offload somewhere else because of those narrow margins. So your figure should include those missing loads into the economic viability of this for an accurate assessment. Somebody you left out are the liveaboards, people who actually live in the harbor. And I don't know how many there are. My guess is there might be 50, there might be 100. I'm clueless. Ask the harbor district. But these are people who live there, they shop there, they drive there, they park there. And it's a whole community. They have dogs, they have cats. Again, I have friends who are liveaboards. And let me see. One of the things that is desperately needed is to protect the industrial businesses that are there. The welding businesses, Steve Smith's car business, I can't tell you how many people I know who have bought trucks. It's not an elegant, tourist-friendly place, but I know people who have bought cars and vehicles there. It's one of the few places that low-income people can afford to get vehicles on the coast. And so we need those kinds of industries there. But we also need a set of design standards. Before anything is allowed to go in, it needs to be based in the community, and we need to have it written and drawn so that people know what to look for. Again, that huge 3-story hotel, and frankly, all of the designs for, what's it called, Big Wave, people have objected strenuously to. And a lot of and there's some other buildings that are historically just bad design that shouldn't be used. And so I think it would be important to have the community involved in the setting of these design standards before anything else goes in as part of this plan. Thank you very much.
Sabrina Brennan?
Hi, thanks for the opportunity to address the Midcoast Community Council. I just have a few things that should piggyback on some of the other comments pretty well. And they're not that organized, so I'm just going to go for it as usual. So the piece about the fishing industry definitely stood out for me. And I think Catherine did a pretty good job of explaining that we are losing business to some of the other ports, some of our neighboring ports, because fees are the highest at Pillar Point Harbor of any other commercial seafood port in California. So that's pretty significant. It's an unfortunate situation for the fishermen. Believe it or not, the fishing industry is still a vibrant and viable industry. So to paint it any other way would not be accurate. And I think you would probably get a lot of feedback from our local fishermen about that. I know anytime I say anything that might give the impression the industry isn't doing that well, I get a lot of feedback. And I've learned a lot in the last couple years about our local commercial fishing industry, and I still have a lot more to learn. But I did want to mention that the San Mateo County Harbor District is in the process of the beginning stages of getting a strategic plan done for the district. So we put out a request for proposal, and we got back a proposal, and the board will be discussing that at a future meeting very soon. I believe the president or the chair of the board already has a copy of that proposal, and I don't know if she's given it to you all yet, but I'm sure you'll see it soon. Why that's important to this, I think that what the Harbor District is doing as far as strategic planning goes is very important to the Princeton plan. And I know that there is a representative, I believe a staff person from the Harbor District that's been attending those meetings. Have they been coming to the meetings regularly? Who was that? I can't remember. Was it the?
You talking about the steering committee?
Yeah.
Peter Grinnell, he's at all meetings.
Oh, he is. Okay. Okay, I just asked because we've never gotten a single report at any of our board meetings on anything that you guys are working on. So that's why I came tonight, because I wanted to find out for myself. So the other thing I wanted to mention is that fish processing, we do have some processing in Princeton, although it's fairly small operation. Although, you know, you guys have probably all seen the trucks running around the coast side from that business, exclusively fresh. I think we're all familiar with it. But the majority of fish that's coming in to Pillar Point Harbor is actually being picked up in semi-trucks and delivered to Watsonville. So it's traveling quite a ways once it comes in to our pier, and that's an unfortunate situation. I think everybody'd like to think that we were all, you know, able to get local seafood here, but our local seafood is going somewhere else for processing, and then it may be coming back here, or it may be shipped overseas, or, you know, it goes all over the place. So I just wanted to make it clear that most of it's going to Watsonville for processing. Now, there are some fishermen who prefer to go into San Francisco. Of course, we've got fishermen going to Moss Landing, to Monterey, various different ports, Bodega Bay, whatnot. But the fish going into San Francisco, just for example, there are no fees to the fish buyers in San Francisco, 0 fees. So for the fishermen, what that means is that it's a better deal financially for them to go to San Francisco if they can work it out with the fuel than to bring in the fish here, because now we have these big fees here that are relatively new. So that's sort of an unfortunate circumstance, which I hope can be changed eventually. The other thing I wanted to mention, kind of getting off of the fishing topic, is I missed the beginning of the meeting, so I apologize about that. But I leafed through here quickly, but I didn't see a lot of planning for bicycle and pedestrian safety. Did I miss that?
It was discussed.
It was,
Briefly.
okay.
No.
So I hope that there's going to be some really detailed mapping, and, you know, I know when we've gotten roads repaved in Princeton in recent years, there's been no accommodations made for bicyclists or pedestrians, and since it is a industrial area, or that's the way it sounds like it's being described now, there are a lot of heavy trucks and vehicles that are dangerous for bicycles and pedestrians. And you know, I know when I ride my bike through Princeton, I am a little nervous about getting hit by a car or something like that. And we have asked the county in the past, when I say we, the community, to address that issue and to not repave roads without planning for bike and pedestrian safety. Not that we don't want the county to repave roads, we definitely do, but it would make sense to do those types of improvements at the same time that you're repaving roads. So that's just something I wanted to mention that we would really, really like to have addressed. And safe crossings are a big deal. We have some really unsafe intersections in Princeton. We have what I describe as multiple bottlenecks, which are just a real hazard for bikes and pedestrians. I mean, it's just scary getting through there, especially on busy weekends. And then the section about coastline program, or whatever you're calling it, I didn't see anything specific, and again, I probably missed it, about sand replenishment on our beaches in Princeton, along the Princeton shoreline. But I'm wondering if there could be some level of detail about the potential for sand replenishment, because we are losing our beaches, and that has a huge impact on tourism and on recreation and the marine uses that we enjoy in Princeton, such as the yacht club and boating and fishing and things like that. And then for the, let's see, oh, I forgot to mention, there was a member from the Half Moon Bay Seafood Marketing Association on the steering committee also, right? Have they been weighing in on some of the fishing issues?
Yeah.
So that those could get reflected back into this?
They have attended, they're on the steering committee, and they have attended the steering committee meetings and provided some feedback on different issues pertaining to the fishermen with land uses.
Would it be helpful if they provided you with a letter? Would that be useful? The association? I'm just wondering.
It's I mean, comments are welcome, so,
Okay.
I mean, it's definitely,
I would just
welcome.
clarify, I appreciate all the input, and it's great. Some of this is considerations for moving forward. So with this existing conditions report, it's really trying to look at, either what's on the ground or what are these, market demand things that affect it. It's not to say that, for instance, the safety, for bicycles and pedestrian, it recognizes what facilities are there. It does talk about the lack of those facilities. And then as we move forward into developing the alternatives and plan, that's where we start to really detail what you're asking about.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
So, and for example, the need for trash collection with the increased access, we've heard that a lot, and that's certainly true. You may not see that in the report saying we need to do that further, but that gets incorporated in the plans, and that's really where all these conversations are so helpful, talking about, and I know you haven't seen the report yet, but the information in the report and moving forward. And I also want to clarify, I don't want anybody to think that we're discounting the importance of the fishing industry or agriculture here. It was the recognition of what the market conditions are, and whether, so it's not that it's not important, it's just that it's not this industry that is just going to flourish probably without some attention and some help, and which is why I think what you see today is some of those vacant areas that are currently reserved for coastal dependent maritime uses. There's a lot of vacancy, and it's filled with a storage and stuff. So it's that recognition of that, as we hear from the community that the maritime and the fishing is so important here, what are those factors that affect the success of that, and trying to help that. So this report is in no way discounting the fishing industry or anything. It's trying to recognize what are the constraints and opportunities for helping that industry out through the planning process.
So I'll try to wrap it up. So just, these are two kind of, you said, on-the-ground realities.
Yeah.
We don't have a boat haul-out facility, and I know that's been an issue for a lot of recreational as well as commercial fishing boat owners. So I just wanted to mention that. There used to be one in Princeton, and there no longer is. And so what that means is that boat owners that have boats here have to take their boats over to Point Richmond to get work done on their boats. So it's a lot of fuel, it's a long trip, and I think there's a desire to have something local. Whether or not that can happen, I don't know, but I wanted to mention it. And then the last thing is just with the hotel, Harbor Village development, it seems to me that there's some problems with the Harbor Village development. I think that probably everybody has noticed that that facility is somewhat underutilized. And I know that the county played a big role in allowing the developer to move forward with a design that was done. When do we think that design was done? In the 70s? Okay, so, you know, when you design something in the 1970s and then you build it, you know, many decades later, you're going to end up with a structure that people really don't want to hang out in because it's just, it's not appropriate these days. So given that, it's a bit of a failure over there. I'm hoping that the county could find a way to work with the business owner to redo it. I think we need to, I don't know if we need to tear it down and rebuild it. That might be a starting point. But I think we need a major overhaul of that building. And I'm talking serious remodel. So that's my suggestion. And I'll just go a little step further and say that to have the businesses face in to a mall when everybody comes here to be part of the coast and they want to be outside, outward facing the water, was an unfortunate decision. If that was changed and the businesses were facing out instead of in, I think we would see a successful development. You know, there are a whole lot of other changes that would need to happen too, but I don't think it's impossible to turn that thing around, but I think it would require some serious renovation. And since the county essentially approved it, as the nice way to put it, and we're saddled with it now, we would like, me and a few of my friends, would like the county to do something to correct it. So I don't know what you guys can do. I know it's asking for a lot. And it would take some pretty creative, out-of-the-box thinking about how to finance it. And, you know, of course, it would take a lot of coordination and working together with the business owner. I would only think that he would welcome an opportunity to make his business successful. And if there was a way to do some sort of joint project, I don't know what it would look like, maybe a library. I would just encourage the county to think about it, because that building is really kind of, there's opportunity there, and it's really kind of a problem at this point. We don't have that much space we can develop. That's a big development, and it could be successful. So I'd love to see that happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Sabrina. Chris?
Yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead, Chris.
Not
Go ahead,
Chris. You're on my list.
Hi, my name is Chris Lannon Lang, live in Moss Beach, and I just wondered if you were considering putting a moratorium on new building during this project, because between the time that it is launched and now, we've got two-story buildings up there. One along the creek in a natural habitat, and then another one slammed right up kitty corner from it. 2 stories, big structures down there.
Well, I have no power to do anything, so I'm going to leave that for the county.
Parcels are selling down there right now. They're moving quickly. There's another one that just sold at auction last week to a developer. So I think people are aware of what's going on with the project and are going to try and get these things in. So
I can say there is currently no moratorium on development out there. I think that is something that it's not something we intended on pursuing throughout this process, and I think it's something that would have to probably go before the planning commission and/or board of supervisors to have something like that, if it's even possible. Legally, I think we probably have to check in with our legal counsel as well about an idea like that. But we haven't done any pursuit on that at this time. You are you know, until the new plan is adopted, hopefully adopted, because who knows, you know, as we go through the process and get to the planning commission board of supervisors and having to get the plan certified through the coastal commission. We hope that that will be towards the end of next year, through that whole process, including coastal commission. But you guys all are probably familiar with past endeavors from the county in the Midcoast LCP update that was just certified, I think, back in 2012, and how long that took to get through as well. So it's not something that the county, and I don't think it's something that the county typically, I don't know that it has been, it's not a practice that we have implemented in the past either. But it's a comment we'll definitely take back, and but I can't say that it's something, I can't guarantee that it's something that would be implemented throughout this process.
So this is a question, perhaps you know the answer, right now for new development. Which community organization approves construction down there? It's my understanding there's a 3-person group that's approving commercial. Nobody's approving any design.
Commercial goes to the county.
It's the Wild West down
Or
there.
are you referring to design review aspects, or?
So design review covers anything that contains a residential piece.
Right.
But it is my observation that people are inclined to call it all commercial, and then install a refrigerator and a gas range down the line. So right now you can just build whatever you want down there. Nobody's approving new construction.
It doesn't have.
Summer,
so process-
you can't be heard on TV, so, yeah.
Sorry, come on up here.
Sorry, I'm not going to be looking at you. I'm not. So the standard permit processing in the Princeton area, the majority of the area is zoned waterfront. Some portions have the airport overlay. The entire area has a design review overlay element to it, and then the coastal development permitting to it, aspect to it. And then a portion, like along Capistrano, and a portion, I think a block or two coming into the kind of the harbor industrial area of Princeton is coastside commercial recreation. So any new development in either of those areas, those kind of zones, would require a coastal development permit and potentially a use permit. And those are typically hearing level processes. So they go through, so for the design review aspect, you're correct. Residential, it has to have a residential component to go through the design review, meaning the coastside design review committee, the public hearing process. Otherwise, it's analyzed by staff, but the entire project, including that design review analysis, goes to hearing, public hearing, and it's typically the zoning hearing officer is the approving body for new development through that public hearing process.
That has a design review that's not coastside design review, but it's another body, but it's not coastside design review committee. It's another review committee, and it's
For design?
Yeah.
The commercial and industrial, isn't there some person, is a dentist who looks over the design?
It's done, so if
Somebody
it
at the
doesn't have
county.
a residential aspect to it, then that's where it's analyzed by staff, and then it's part of that overall permitting process that goes to hearing. So it has the element of a public hearing and review and final approval by the zoning hearing officer as the reviewing body for those permits. But it is, again, if it doesn't have a residential aspect to it, it doesn't go to the coastside design review committee. There's no other committee that the county has in place other than the coastside design review committee, other than, again, it's analyzed at staff level, and that analysis is put into a staff report that goes to the zoning hearing officer before a public hearing for, so it's a recommendation from staff to the zoning hearing officer or planning commission or whoever.
No story post to be required.
Yes, the public hearing process is
Notices those buildings
is
being considered.
so it's a, yeah.
The
It's
agendas are published, and you can sign
Yeah,
up to
for-
receive them.
for
Basic-
public
Might
hearings.
be asking, what radius are they informing the people that live
It's
around
a
that?
300-foot radius from
So
the property
only the
line.
300-foot radius, yeah, okay.
Those are the people that get notified directly. Again, the
Right.
agenda goes out to the
So
public.
then there's,
It's published in the
agendas are
newspaper.
posted, you can sign up to receive all agendas, and notices go to the newspaper and, right.
Any other questions? Chris?
Martha, just, I'm sure that the final and formal existing conditions report will have this, but since Bill brought it up and some other people were wondering about the data, will that data be sourced in footnotes that will be in this document so that people can see where did, this statement that's being made about the expansion of fishing or agriculture based on hard facts, will those be footnoted?
Right, so the volume of fish, the dollar amounts brought in, the types of fish compared to other ports, where it stands, all that, yeah. These are the summary conclusion bullets.
Okay. The other thing is, if anybody wants to buy the bones of the old boat launch, boat pullout, I believe it's for sale in Princeton right now. You can get it for $595,000.
Are you guys talking to Lisa Wise Consulting about your figures for commercial fishing? Because if you're not, you might want to do that.
Okay. Excuse me, aside from just fishing, I'm assuming, or I would request, that there's data about all of the industries there, so that we have a sense of what's coming in, what's going out, what's successful, what isn't, just the financial viability.
Yeah, so there's the discussion on, the demand for the industrial types uses, the vacancy rates, so on. So it is based on the market study of that, and that's a whole chapter in the report is on the fishing, boating, and visitor survey needs.
Okay, so that would include the local businesses as well? Or are you just talking agriculture and fishing?
No, and the industrial uses, all the types of economic
currently
drivers
there.
in the area.
Oh,
Right,
okay.
right.
Great.
Did you have something else?
Yes, so you mentioned that, it seemed that you were saying that the plans, the people you work for's position is that you discovered that the Princeton is underused as far as the fishing industry. And you cited the storage facilities. My question to you is, do you know that the fishing industry does use those storage facilities and they may need to provide more for the fishing industry?
Yeah, and I don't want to, get into, based on this PowerPoint, the back and forth on what's supporting that. I think it would be better served if, can look in the report and have a discussion on that. But we also, so we're looking, there's an economic consultant on the team who did the report on that, and through that, not only are they looking at fishing industry data, business data, it's also talking to the fishermen in the area, talking to the harbor district. We also talk to fishermen, so it's a bringing together a lot of different sources coming forward. So again, I don't want, we understand and recognize that the fishing industry is important here, and the report is not intended to discount that at all, but to bring out some of an awareness of what some opportunities and constraints are and what to work within in order to support that as an important piece of the community.
Oh, I just, on the storage, I know somebody that runs one of those storage units, and the fishermen use those storage units.
Sure.
And the liveaboards use the storage units, and they have a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and I don't want to say, I'm not saying to get
so
rid
it's
of the
not-
storage or anything.
Yeah, no, I just wanted
Yeah.
to point that out, that you might drive by and think, oh, this is just household junk,
Sure.
but it does relate to
Yeah.
a lot of it does relate to the fishing.
And I remember telling one fisherman, I said, well, what would really help you? What do you need? He said, I need some place to buy gloves at 6 o'clock in the morning, and so there's things that do support the fishing industry that at least your current zoning doesn't recognize as supporting the fishing industry. So it's really about understanding and trying to work some of that out.
Zoning does not recognize.
Does anybody else have questions for Martha? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Martha.
Thank you. Leave it on, should I turn it off the screen?
So the next item on our agenda is 4B, La Costanera Restaurant, consideration of revised initial study and negative declaration which addresses environmental impacts of a use permit amendment to expand restaurant hours on Fridays and weekends from 10 a.m. to 2 a.m., formalize and improve adjacent dirt Montero State Beach parking lot, and legalize exterior building improvements, including lighting and patios. The desired outcome is to approve an MCC comment letter concerning the adequacy and correctness of the initial study and negative declaration. I want to stress that. The comments at this time, I'm going to have a presentation. The comments at this time are to just on the adequacy and correctness of the negative declaration. So try and stay focused. Okay, so I have some slides. We have a we have a 3-page draft letter. I'm not going to read that, but I'm going to show some slides and just hit the highlights of I have to open it first.
Dang.
I think you caused it to power off. You'll have to hit the button on it right again.
Your screen is great.
Isn't that beautiful? This is our new projector screen.
Excellent job. I mean,
It's a little dark for me.
Thank you to Dave and Dan.
Really?
For shopping. Now if we can get the projector to work, we'll be good.
Power light is flashing.
It's warm.
I'm hitting it. What?
What's
It's
happening?
warm.
You're so fussy. He wants
Sorry,
to see
guys.
things.
Water
What,
break?
what does it mean when you shake your head?
Oh.
Is it going to come on or?
It's going to come on.
Oh, it's going to come
just
on.
like-
he
What
says.
happened?
Let me just.
When Dan hit the
Oh,
button
let
the
me
second
just-
time,
Meeting? While everyone chit chats in the hall.
All right, here we go again. We're on La Costanera Restaurant. So, and the slides will start in a moment. This is the restaurant at Montero State Beach. The initial study and negative declaration of environmental impact. It's for a use permit amendment to expand the hours, and it's to legalize exterior modifications, and it's for grading and development permits for the State Park's dirt parking lot that's immediately north of the restaurant. So the permit jurisdiction here is a little more complicated than usual. The restaurant was built in 1977, and it got a use permit from the county, and the restaurant seating is limited to 189 seats. The hours of operation are limited to from 5 p.m. to closing time, and the beach parking is required to be shared until 5 p.m. 53 spaces in the northern lot and 20 spaces in the southern lot are to be provided for beach parking. Those were the terms of the use permit. And in '77, they got the coastal development permit from the Coastal Commission, because that was before the county had an LCP. And it was to remodel the hotel and restaurant. Once again, 189 seat capacity maximum. And the conditions to assure adequate parking for both restaurant and beach. The hours of operation of the restaurant bar shall be limited to that period between 5 p.m. and normal closing time. Now, in order to change this, the process requires two steps. First, the county would need to approve the use permit amendment, and the Coastal Commission would need to approve an amendment to the coastal development permit. If the county takes a step and approves the amendment to the use permit, it would not go into effect until the Coastal Commission also approved their amendment. Parking is a key issue for daytime restaurant hours. As I mentioned, this restaurant was built in 1977. In 1981, they applied to be allowed to have daytime Sunday hours, and the permit application was denied because there was no new available parking. In 1990, State Parks proposed to build a 160-car parking lot on the bluff to the north of the facilities that are there now. And the project was withdrawn because there was such public objection to paving over this large swath of coastal bluff in the scenic corridor. Basically, the highway there is a designated scenic corridor. The community fought long and hard to prevent a freeway from going over that mountain, and what you have there now is choice and beautiful, the whole view shed, and most people enjoy it from their cars going by. Not everybody stops to go to the beach, not that it's not a good thing to go to the beach, but to put a parking lot over the whole bluff, it's like, you know, what have we done here? So that's just the background there. Okay, so in this permit attempt, they wanted to show that they have new parking. And you can see here historical photos. In 1972, the pink building in the middle there was what was there before. It was a restaurant and a motel. And you can see that in 72, the whole parking lot was paved, including what's now the dirt parking lot that owns State Park. So that was all formalized, striped, paved parking from 1950 when that place was built and until 1979. The middle picture, you can see the restaurant now has been built. And don't ask me why the lots are labeled as they are, A, B, and C in that odd order. I didn't do it, but that's how they were referred to in the negative declaration. So B is the lot that belongs to State Parks. And you can see it evolves, and you can see in 86 now it has turned to dirt. And that just happened over time is all I can assume, because, and if you look at the dirt over there now, you can see pieces of asphalt in it. So I just think it was just a matter of neglect that it turned to dirt. But anyway, over all these years, Lot B has always been beach parking, and you can see other aerial Google photos or whatever. You can count the cars. It's always held around 20 cars, and that hasn't changed. So this is the dirt lot that belongs to State Parks. And this project, okay, so the property owner has signed a letter of intent, or actually State Parks signed a letter of intent. So there would be this deal where the property owner, the restaurant people would pay to grade and put gravel down and fix the drainage on State Parks parking lot and promise to take care of it forever. And in return for that, they're saying that they have now provided 10 new parking spaces, but actually the lot will still hold just 20 cars. So whereas this is a benefit to improve that parking lot, it hasn't provided any new parking spaces. Now the negative declaration says just this part of it has provided 10 new spaces because they're only crediting it with 10 existing, and so if there's 20 when they get done, they're saying, oh look, we've gained 10. And then you'll notice the sign here says customer parking, Tom's Auto Body, tow away, whatnot. Okay, so several times now the restaurant people have put up these kind of signs on all these parking lots to say it's just for the restaurant and you can't park there. To the extent where, here's one, no parking on State Parks property. And this was the most recent one in April 2013. And, you know, people in the community see it, they call and complain, and, you know, and they take them down. But they just keep doing this kind of thing. Okay. So this is the parking plan in their application. And there's the numbering system, A, B, and C. Okay, so we've talked about B, the dirt lot. Now, let's move over to the left side, parking lot C. This is on the south of the restaurant, and what they propose to do is the daytime restaurant hours would be limited. It wouldn't be the whole restaurant. It would be limited to, I don't know, 92 spaces, they say. And they would all have to park in parking lot C. And so they want to restripe parking lot C, but they don't provide any measurements of how big those restriped parking spaces are. And I just got to say, when I go over there, it doesn't look to me like you could fit a car in there. But regardless of that, say you could restripe it as they propose, The black part is where they're gonna have valet parking. So people are gonna come in and they're gonna park the cars in the access area of the lot, which, if you look at that, you might imagine that they did that with a helicopter. But, and so the people are gonna drive up into the throat, in the driveway throat there, and get out of their car, turn it over to the guy, and he's gonna somehow juggle all these cars around and fit that car in. And as people come out, they do the reverse. So I don't really see how it's gonna work, but that's what they propose to get these new spaces that would be required. Next slide. Okay. Now, this is closely related issues. So this is standing at First Street looking north, and so the coastal trail hasn't yet been developed in this area, but it's got to pass either in front of the restaurant, between the highway and the restaurant. Part of that landscaping is in the Caltrans right-of-way, or behind the restaurant where there's already a path there. Well, to get behind the restaurant, you got to walk through the parking lot, either parking lot C or parking lot A, one or the other. Well, if you're going to park in State Parks lot that's just south of here and walk through this parking lot, you can see where people go through the landscaping and then across the parking lot. Well, this is the lot where they're going to be doing all the valet parking. It's going to be just full of cars. And so the coastal access issue there, the mitigation that they propose for this is to stripe like a lane where the people are supposed to walk, but I don't picture it. Anyway, so that's there. So now to sum up the traffic and parking impacts. The negative declaration says that the impact is not significant and they've mitigated for whatever problems there are, and it's all good. The comments that we have in our letter pretty much say these bulleted items, that they say they've only lost 9 beach parking spaces on Fridays and weekends, but they're actually going to lose 19, and that is a significant impact. The traffic and parking study that they did was they were out there collecting their data on a rainy November, Friday, and Saturday. And actually I have a rain gauge in my yard, and I can tell you how much it rained those days. I mean, it was not a beach day. And so that's not an adequate assessment of the impacts, because that report obviously said, oh, look, there's hardly anybody here, no problem. Future nearby parking, they talk about the Highway 1 study and the concept plans in there, like parking for GGNRA might be here, but it's all just concept plans. No projects are in the works for new parking there yet, and they're saying, you know, this is all going to be good because these things are going to happen, but that's premature. The beach parking signage, they propose as a mitigation to put, you know, I showed you the sign where the restaurant put no parking tow away. Well, what they're proposing to tell them to put is signs saying, this is beach parking in the daytime. And that supposedly is going to keep restaurant people from parking there. You know, they have a choice. They can try the valet lot, or they could just park in the beach parking, and who's going to stop them? You know what I mean? And then, I think I already mentioned these striped pedestrian access ways that they proposed. Okay, so that's parking. Then they have to, part of this is to get after the fact permits for all these all this stuff that they've done. This permit is dated 2006, and everything that they have done here since then is without permits, and this has all been in the works all these years, and they keep I mean, I think they got a building permit to do some interior work, but when they did that, they took the fins off. You can see in 2004 that's the way the building was when they got it, and where the 2 decks are, one had those fins on the back of the building, and then where the upper deck is now, that was a grassy slope. So basically they built a retaining wall, they filled it in, they paved it over, they took out the fins on the building, they paved it over, they put the glass railing in, they put in gas lanterns, electric lights, countless lights, fire pits, all this stuff, and they're seating people out there, serving people out there, and they don't have permits to do that, and the Coastal Commission has written them violation letters since 2011, and they don't reply, and they just go right on. And the lighting, the flood lighting on the roof, oh, that's a different slide. But anyway, this is some other stuff. So you're not, in the scenic corridor, you're not supposed to have any kind of advertising banners, anything that moves, that's no good. But they got this Costanera banner and other flags. They got their bright blue sandwich boards out there, that's not permitted, and it's advertising outdoor dining, which is not permitted yet. And along the roof is you can see the floodlights bristling on the edge of the roof. Those have been finally removed, and that was just because of the citizen petition. Okay, some other violations. So this towing sign that I showed you before on the dirt lot, they had that at every lot. But we got those taken down. Then the most recent thing was this orange paint on the sign. They changed out the wording on the sign and painted it orange, and I sent this in just the other day, and the planner told the owner, you can't keep doing this, it's ruining your case, and I don't think the orange color is going to pass. And so I've heard that they've painted the orange back to white.
Yeah, that's all white.
But it's just a continuous struggle with this. Okay.
What about the ship's wheel behind the sign?
Well, that's new too. That's new too, but I have to say that's the least of it. If that could stay, but that,
They're wearing you down. Don't
what, at least it's not orange.
Not
Okay.
yet.
So when I complained, and I said I wasn't going to mention the wheel, but the signs, and he said, oh, not to worry, he was going to leave it white. He was going to leave the wheel white. And then anyway, whatever. Okay, so, see, I jumped ahead.
You skipped your
I know.
lights.
Okay, the lights. So this is from the beach and the parking lot. So these have been removed. But the Coastal Commission and MCC have been writing letters since 2010 or 11, I don't know, about these lights, and they did nothing. And it was last summer that Montero citizens started the Change.org petition, and it just, within a couple of days, it just zoomed up, approaching 100. And I had the owner's email address from some other exchanges, so I just sent him the link to the petition, and next thing you know, the lights were down. But not to say he didn't put them back up again later, and so I said, what the heck, and he said, oh, sorry, I had them put up for my wedding. I guess he had his wedding there. But, what? Okay, so I'm almost done. Landscaping, they have a landscape plan, and in our letter, it asks that they don't add, I'm getting ahead of myself. I just wanted to point out these two shrubs. The top one is our native ceanothus, and this is growing, it's low growing there, and it's covering up the riprap. And so if you sit in your car, you have the ceanothus there, it's not blocking your view, and it's beautiful. And it's native. And the bottom picture is Pittosporum, and this is a garden plant that escapes. And I know a lot of people have this in their yard, but it's colonizing our bluffs, and it's colonizing the riprap there, and it will grow up so that when you sit in your car, you won't be able to see the beach. So we've asked for them to remove that. Okay, so then this last slide is the comments in our letter that are on the aesthetic impacts of this project. The lighting mitigations that they have in the neg deck just sort of limit the number of lights and the wattage, and they need to make them confine because this is the zoning requirement. They have to confine the direct rays to the premises. And as far as landscaping, we said no additional trees to block views, remove the Pittosporum, and use only low plantings west of the parking lots to avoid blocking coastal views from parked cars. So that's my presentation. And the letter has been posted on the website since Sunday, so I assume if you're interested in this topic, you've already looked at it. And first of all, what I'd like is if council members have specific clarifying questions on the presentation, let's start with those. Not your comments, but just clarifying questions.
1 second, please, let me just check.
I said not your comments.
I do have one question that kind of helps me understand. So if you had mentioned that the restaurant has got continual letters from the Coastal Commission, and they've chosen to ignore them. So is it my understanding that there's no type of fine or penalty that's associated with violations? In other words, is that not the process?
That was recently, the legislature had a chance to approve that ability for the Coastal Commission within the last year, and they decided not to do that. So no, the Coastal Commission cannot fine them, but they would have to, it would be a legal, it would be, it's difficult.
Okay.
It's difficult.
Okay.
What they can do is when they come in to get their permit to have daytime hours, they can say now. But you have a question?
Yeah, so I read all the documents you had on this, including the 77 initial application and the 81 denial for the parking, or for the expanded hours based on the parking, and the 2006 application, the one that's online that has everything up to the current time. I found it repeatedly states, quote, parking agreement is found or determined to be, quote, lost for good. Several times I saw this, and it said, County Real Properties is looking into this as a parenthesized statement. Seems like a pretty important thing if, this is all based on this agreement that, we're gonna allow you to park here on certain hours, and they can't find the parking agreement. Do you ever,
No,
if they ever found that agreement?
No, I don't think that's necessary. What's also there is the actual permit from the county, the actual use permit, which limits the limits the daytime hours, and the Coastal Commission CDP, which clearly spells out what they're supposed to do, and I think that's what's needed.
I understand that that's the, that's the law now, because that's the official document, but having a background in history, things tend to take on a life of their own and just become in existence because that's the way it's always been or whatever. And so when I see that this parking agreement is found or determined to be lost for good, I wonder, what was the actual language in that agreement versus what is in the official document? And it seems to me an annoying thing to just wave it away of the original agreement of whatever we decided. This is it now. I understand this is the reality now, but it would be nice to know what that original agreement says.
I don't know if I posted the minutes to the Planning Commission meeting where this was approved. They were discussing their, basically, you have the Lot C to the south of the restaurant. Actually, that land belongs to that property. Lot A, immediately north of the restaurant, is the First Street right-of-way. And the discussion was at the time that should they allow the restaurant to use the First Street right-of-way for their parking lot? And it was pointed out that if they didn't allow that, obviously the restaurant couldn't even happen. So they allowed it. And maybe that thing was lost, but I don't think anybody's talking about going backwards on that. They're allowed to use that for their nighttime parking. The question is, are they going to be allowed to use that all day on the weekends?
I understand, but that was at least twice in the application, and that's, you provided so many other documents that are comprehensive on this. And obviously, it's not your responsibility to find this document, but
that's a relief.
But to me, that's that's a missing piece, that this whole thing is contingent upon the parking agreement, and the original parking agreement document is.
I don't think it's
not
contingent
available.
on that, but I don't think I'm going to resolve that tonight.
No, but I wanted to point out that that document is apparently lost for good.
Did I understand correctly, their permit was based on that, which is why they can't open until 5, correct?
They were allowed to use the First Street right-of-way for their parking. But they have to, but only for evening restaurant. It has to be available, First Street right-of-way parking lot has to be available for beach parking in the daytime.
And the daytime is defined as prior to 5 p.m.
Yes. Any other questions on, not comments, questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So, how many seats were added by the unpermitted improvements on the patio, the two separate patio areas?
They say they have not added any new seats.
I think they said they took 9 away or something, didn't they?
They still say they have 189.
The upper patio.
They say.
The upper patio, which was a lawn, requires reservations are going through the hostess. So
They say they're not
They're counted in the number of diners they can have there, but they're not permanent tables. They don't count them in their restaurant tables.
Well, they have to, but we didn't, I didn't.
I'm
go-
just saying what they
I-
do.
Yeah, right. We don't have a comprehensive letter here. We only leave comprehensive letters to Lenny Roberts, but we have a 3-page letter anyway. Anyway, so public comment.
I have more questions.
Well, we can just, can I let the public speak a little bit?
I just want to finish my, you
All
asked me
right,
if I had a
sorry.
question, I have a question.
I'm very sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so how is the number of, how do they come up with the formula for how many parking spaces they need related to the number of seats that they have in the
That's a
restaurant?
county-
Or is it square footage?
It's a county formula, it's 1 parking space for every 2.5 seats,
Okay, 1 per every 2.5 seats, okay.
or 1 for every 3 seats. The coastal commission has a different one, and I forget which is which. The coastal commission require actually more parking spaces. Oh, and by the way, they were given a parking exception in 77 as well, because even by that formula, even with using First Street, they were 10 spaces
Yes.
short.
Yes.
And so they gave them a parking exception saying, okay, you can have only 53 instead of 63. Any other questions?
Not right now, thank you.
Okay, public comment, we have.
Just ask one.
Who?
Could I just ask one question?
Yes.
So if the coastal commission is basically the one who rules on this, who is responsible for compliance?
Sheriff?
Everybody, but, you know, it's like,
community.
Let's not even go there. I mean, it's like, it is what it is, you see. It is what, you know, what was effective was change.org. So,
Well, okay, anyway, that does not answer my question.
I don't know. I would assume it's either the county or the coastal commission.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Mike Ferreira.
Good evening, Madam Chair, council members. I don't come and speak to you very often. I read the letter over the weekend and felt I had to come down here and just express my appreciation for the hard work and diligence that we're getting from a small Citizens Advisory Council with nearly a zero budget and zero staff. And I was very, very impressed with the thoroughness of that letter and the amount of digging that you did and the way that you're presenting it. You're representing the community in an excellent, studious, scrupulous fashion. And I think that any typical restaurant owner or business wants to hit the reset button for what they want to do, but history is important. History is context and law, and you've done an excellent job of going back in and framing all of that. A far better job than the environmental document preparer, and I'd just like to congratulate you for that. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Well, let's hear it for Lisa. She did all this work. A lot of research there.
I have to say, Dave volunteered to review the letter and provide us some good input.
A little bit for Dave, too.
Golf clap for Dave.
Bill Kehoe?
Thank you again. I would echo everything that Mike just said. You did a great job. I read it and I thought, geez, you're playing into their hand. You're litigating the case like a lawyer would litigate the case. And, I just get so frustrated when you go through the history of this and see that they are continually, just like water on a stone, they make an agreement, they get it in there, and then they get the lawyers, and time after time after time, they keep coming back, because they've got the money, and they know they'll eventually make a profit when they win. And so they'll keep doing this until we're long gone and buried. And to me, I just think we should oppose any expansion before 5 o'clock. That's what the original intent was, and we should hold their feet to the fire. Because if they get away with that, every business that's made an agreement is going to keep doing that. And they probably will anyway, but why give it? But the letter is excellent. I mean, you might as well try this, but I'll be out there if they get it, picketing, saying that they, or maybe we do another change.org or something, and get them to back off, because during the daytime, it is very few parking spaces for the number of people that use that beach. So if it's a restaurant, for brunch, that's, on the weekend, that's just not gonna work.
You
So-
could just transpose Sam's down there, imagine how that'll be.
Well, eventually, that's a good point, because eventually, it's gonna happen all the way along where there's a scenic view. I mean, luckily, in Moss Beach, the road is inland a little bit there. There's places, it's 7th or 8th Street in Montera, where up on the hill a little bit, you do get some ocean view there, and I notice now that there's an RV that seems to be parked at I think it's the end of 8th Street, an awful lot. And I don't know if that's the owner or whatever, but anyway, good job.
Thank you.
I'd say no to any of it.
Catherine?
Excuse me, can I talk to Bill a second?
No.
Sure.
Go ahead. And it's the county that's stuck enforcing it, because the coastal commission has no officers to go out there and do anything.
They have the CDP.
Oh, they have one person for the whole state? Oh. I thought they were busy trying to get Barbara Streisand to move back from the bluff and down. Anyway.
Okay, so it's my understanding that what you were saying is you don't believe that they should be able to operate before 5 PM. because
That's my own personal, I would go for that, don't do it. But, if the council decides that they just try and keep boxing them in with each item in there, that's also adequate. What I'm saying is that I'd go stronger if I could. That's all I'm saying.
You?
Me, yeah, Mr. Nice Guy.
What we're supposed to do now is comment on the adequacy of the neg deck. And when it comes to the planning commission, that's when you go and you say, don't do it, if you so choose.
And I understand that's why you're doing it.
This is not the time, because this is to the planner. She is not the decision maker. You want to say that kind of thing to the decision maker.
I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, but.
Catherine?
But anyway.
All right, Catherine Slater Carter, and I agree with Mike and, what's his face, Bill. Just say no. But I realize you can't do that, you have to talk about the neg deck, and I think you did a pretty thorough letter, but I have a few points I think we should maybe throw in. But first, to Laura's question, who enforces the Coastal Act? The community, the people who live here. That's what it comes down to. You can't rely on the county. They don't even enforce their own zoning and their own use permits in Princeton, which was something I forgot to mention on their plan.
They probably know.
But, and Chris did mention that they put in something that they call it storage and then move in a sink and a fridge and a stove and it becomes an apartment, so. But don't turn this into another Sam's roadblock. That place is just, it actually stops people from Montera and Moss Beach from heading south on the weekends. It's not good for anybody's business. Something that I didn't recall in your letter, this is not a coastal dependent use. They aren't given any of the rights or privileges or priorities of a coastal dependent use. And I think that needs to be emphasized. This restaurant could be anywhere. It could be, in the San Mateo, and it wouldn't make any difference. This is not a coastal dependent use. I will say I am speaking as a property owner on First Street, and I watch the traffic there. Often First Street, which is parked up with beachgoers, that's not a problem, but when it's parked up at night with restaurant users, I get a little annoyed because my tenant, any parking they might have for guests gets used up by Costanera users. I believe there needs to be a full-on traffic study. It needs to be done on high-use weekends. In a short distance, probably less than 500 feet, there are 5 in and out access points. There are 3 driveways on the west and 2 streets on the east in that 500 feet. Combine that with bicyclists and pedestrians and people trying to get through on high-use weekends, adding more business and more traffic during these is going to be a safety nightmare. And I've been talking to people in Montara and Moss Beach about this, and they're all very, very concerned about the safety for people who want to use the beach. This traffic study needs to look at the impact on the neighborhoods from the users, the existing users when that restaurant is packed to capacity. The county gave them the use of Highway 1. They're not paying property taxes on that. And so of First Street. So what's the county getting in return? That First Street parking should be used for beach access. The county's responsibility is not to get a few extra sales tax dollars from a non-priority use that's on the beach. The county's priority is to enforce the Coastal Act, and that's to make sure there's parking for people. So they need to be looking at the impacts on neighbors, neighborhood, parking. Something that I didn't see, but I didn't pour over it like other people did. How many employee cars use up parking spaces? Is that calculated in there? Because there's no buses for people to get to work. And sometimes there are 10, 15 people there at work. I'm willing to bet they drive. I've talked to them. They live in San Francisco and other places. They must drive. Where do they park? They're using up parking spaces for the restaurant. And what time do they get there? Because if a restaurant opens at 5, generally the staff has to be there starting at about 3:30 to get the food going and get the place set up. And even the wait staff gets there half an hour to 15 minutes beforehand. So that's something that needs to be looked into on this. And my last point is there have been a number of comments on Nextdoor Montara, Nextdoor Moss Beach, and coastsider.com. And I would suggest that you include those in your as an attachment to what you're sending, because in general the folks in the community are going, nah, this is supposed to be a beach user's parking lot. And the other is I have noticed that this has been used for special events during the day. Lisa, you said the owner mentioned he held his wedding there. Well, hello, is that in their use permit? I don't think so.
Someone was selling food once in little boxes, because those were flying all over on the beach.
That may have been a special event or something. But somebody should be looking into it, and I would suggest that anything you send to the county, please CC, as you know, to the Coastal Commission so that they have copies.
Yes.
It's been my experience going through records at the Coastal Commission that things that the MCC has sent or citizens or the county has sent, somehow, to Chris's point, wait, they don't have that use permit, the parking restrictions? Somehow those things get conveniently lost at the county. So I think it's important to get a wide distribution on that. Thank you.
Anybody else? I'll close the public comment. Okay, so council,
Yes? I'd like to speak.
can we have a motion on the table to guide our discussion? Is that fine?
I will move that we send the letter as drafted.
You second it? I'll second it.
I'll second it. Is anyone seconding it?
Well, no, because I actually would like to ask one alteration be made.
Well, no, we just put the motion on the table, we're not going to vote
Just for
right yet.
discussion.
So we have the right to
In other
discuss.
words,
Oh, okay.
all right, so let's just go around.
All right, so in the house I formerly lived in Montara, I looked straight down on the Costanera, and that parking lot is full a lot. There have been daytime events. I have experienced the traffic crossing the highway there many times. I have experienced the trash, which they say is serviced by MWSD regularly, but they clearly have not scheduled pickup often enough because it is very smelly a lot of the time, and trash is all over the ground. is they expand their use, and it's not MWSD's fault.
No, I will say the business can contract with Seacoast, or what Recology of the Coast now, to do additional pickups.
Absolutely.
That's what is available. The business itself is just choosing not to take care of its
That was-
health code responsibility.
That was my point, and if they're increasing their use, they will clearly need more. But I will tell you, I cross the highway there quite often getting to and from the beach, and it is extremely difficult, not just because of the highway traffic, but because of the traffic trying to turn in and out of there. And coming south on Highway 1 to turn left on 2nd, which I frequently do, you see a lot of people who do not understand how to turn into the existing parking lot. And when the traffic becomes more difficult in that parking lot, as it will under this plan, it will be significantly worse. And there will be more accidents at that location.
Well, I agree with Dave. I think that the whole parking issue is a big problem, just waiting to get worse. I think that right now, Highway 1 is starting to feel the impacts of the added traffic coming once the tunnels, now that the tunnel's open. And we're just finding all kinds of pinch points along the way. And this development or these changes would create another pinch point, and it would just compound. And frankly, you know, I'm getting less patient with all of the the situations along the highway which people are saying, oh, this is just a small change, no one's going to know, it's not really going to affect, and just this compounding effect is getting serious, in my opinion. I think that the letter could be stated a little stronger. Frankly, I am against the daytime hours usage.
Laura?
Okay, well, that's a question I have. It sounds to me, like when I read your, regarding the daytime hour usage, that basically the study was not adequate and you're requesting another, we're requesting another study, right? On a day that is busy.
The traffic study? Yeah, that
Yes.
doesn't work.
Okay, now, is this traffic study going to, how do I say, address the hours in any way? Are we?
What the document, the negative declaration assesses the environmental impacts of this proposal. And what they're saying is that they have looked at the impacts on traffic and parking, and due to the conditions on a rainy November, decided that there are no significant impacts. And what we're saying is your study does not adequately assess the impacts.
So we're not going to comment on that until they come back with a new study?
This is the appropriate type of comment on this document.
Gotcha. Okay, well, I would like to add that there's even more parking issues. At least there was a year or two ago, my daughter was on the surf club, and 2 days a week there's practice, and depending on the wave formations and the weather, we would all go to Montero Beach, and particularly on Sundays. So that would be between like 11 and 1 o'clock. We're talking about a lot of trucks and vehicles that carry surfboards and vans. And so that parking lot, as it was, it's pretty hard to get all that stuff down to the beach and the little bit of parking there. I can't even imagine if they were serving food and this was happening too, and I don't see that mentioned anywhere. And I don't know, so it's supposed to be beach parking. Anyhow, I'll go past that too. You know, I think we all want to see a business succeed in Montero, but the other side of that coin is that if you own that land, you're a steward of the land and you work with the community. I mean, it's a priceless, as Dan would say, gem. Now, the question that comes to my mind is then, so what are your options? You can pressure them from the community, because obviously we're their patrons, and this is where their dollars and cents come from. And then you also have county compliance and/or coastal commission compliance. So I'll end my comments there, and I support your letter.
And thank you so much for this amazing work that you have continued for a couple of years, which made me think about I used to think, wow, 4-year term in the MCC. But you know, why are they so long? When I look at the continuity, for example, you've had with this very detailed project, it would be very hard for someone to come in new, take that over and continue to follow this. So-
Because this came to us in December of 2012,
Yeah.
the first neg deck. So I already had a letter written then, which we never got to use, so all I had to do was update it. And that was over a year ago.
So I was gonna say we should change it to 8-year terms.
Okay, Erin.
Well, first of all, I did want to say the same thing, reiterate just thanks to both of you for all of your diligence and hard work. I think it's a pretty amazing letter. I'm going to start with sort of my easiest comment first. And you mentioned it a couple of times, and I think it's really significant in your presentation when you talked about the traffic assessment that they're basing all of this on and the flawed logic in it. And so one of the things that I would like to say is just sort of a specific point is in that paragraph, you've underlined it is incorrect to conclude in that paragraph. I actually would like to suggest that you underline lunchtime traffic and parking counts were conducted, that sentence, and don't underline it is incorrect to conclude, because that's a powerful piece of information. Does that make sense what I'm saying to you?
The reason I underlined what I did is because those are the specific comments that you make on a neg deck.
Okay.
You want to say, is it adequate or is it inadequate?
Okay.
Is it correct or incorrect? Or what
Can
was
you
the third?
bold the information?
You want to bold something different or bold instead of underline? What do you?
No, what I'm saying is, can you bold the lunchtime traffic and parking? In other words, I feel like that.
I haven't found it yet. Where are you?
It's
Traffic parking, page 2.
Page 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth paragraph down. Parking and traffic study attachment L.
And what do you want underlined?
At any rate, I just, if it's something that you can consider.
What do you want me to underline?
Or bold.
What?
Where it says lunchtime traffic and parking, that's
Up to-
that sentence.
The whole sentence?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's pretty significant and it should be called out.
Right.
Even the rain measurements?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to point out, for those who haven't been through a neg deck thing, the neg deck is saying, we don't need to do anything, everything is just fine.
Right.
So what Lisa's letter is doing is saying, no, the place where you said everything is just fine is not just fine.
Right.
And that's why she's calling attention to what she's calling attention to.
And I think and I understand the sort of protocol for that, but I think that is a key piece of information, because that's a key piece of information that they're relying on, which clearly their logic is flawed if that's the data that they're using. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, so anyway, the next thing is that the two other things that I wanted to point out. The first is, I don't know, there's also a dirt parking lot that's like north of La Costanera, where people park to go down to the beach.
That's lot B.
You mean immediately north, not at the north end of the beach?
It's across from where there's like 4 parking spots where you can walk up into the.
Martini Creek.
All right, we haven't discussed that tonight. That is a state beach parking lot.
Okay.
But it's too far to walk. It doesn't relate to this project.
Okay,
You wouldn't park there and walk all the way to this restaurant.
No, but my point is that people park there to go to the beach, and Sunday, that parking lot was full. So if you came to go down to the beach and that parking lot was full, then where are you going to park where you can also access the beach?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So.
And that's why we don't want to see the beach parking taken.
Well, right, but I mean, I think that's another thing to kind of bring into consideration is there's additional parking that people utilize to access the beach, but it gets full on the weekends. So when people are then going to look, well, where else can I park specifically to go to the beach? Where are they going?
Right, so I believe Lisa actually addressed that in the letter, I'm not sure just where, because one of the things in the application was, the transportation planning is planning to put in more parking.
Yeah.
Lisa's called out the fact that that's all still future planning. So I think that is somewhat addressed. Would you agree, Lisa?
It is addressed, that specific comment about the stuff in the Highway 1 study, but I didn't bring up the parking lot at the north end of Montero Beach because it's too far away to use for nobody's going to park there and go to the restaurant.
Clearly, I'm not saying that.
And it doesn't matter whether Okay, we're concerned about beach access at both parking lots, but it's the beach access at the restaurant that's being addressed here.
And I understand that, but what I'm saying is that the beach parking lot at the restaurant is going to be further impacted by the fact that if that parking lot at the far north end is full, then they are going to, now they can go down to the parking lot at the restaurant and use the stairs.
So the
But
north
if they
parking
lose
lot
that,
is always full.
right, on the weekends. So, does that make sense?
And that, I think Lisa's right, if we try and drag in the rest of the beach parking, we
This-
actually dilute this.
This is a complicated letter as it
Okay,
is.
but that's fine. I mean, I just, I'm just kind of underscoring that issue.
Okay.
And then the last thing is everybody is afraid of liability. And one thing I don't think gets addressed is if people are now, whether they're going to the restaurant or going to the beach, looking for a place to park because there's increased use in the restaurant and/or less parking spaces for the beach, and now they're parking in Montero on the residential streets and they're crossing the highway, and there's no crosswalk there, there's no stoplights, there's no nothing. So if this gets approved and then somebody gets hit crossing the highway with their kid, what are they doing?
Well, see, this came up in their traffic study too, because when they did the traffic study on the rainy November day,
nobody's crossing the highway.
Right, and so they said there's no problem here. So what we're saying is you need to look at it when the situation exists in order to assess it. So that is in the letter.
Okay.
Can I add on to that for a moment?
Please do.
I'm curious, when they do a traffic study, that's a good point. So how are they identifying, for example, there are a lot of cars that are coming over there to park in the residential neighborhoods. I mean, how on earth do you measure that?
Well, there was nobody parking there that day. In fact, the lot wasn't full. So what they did was they measured how many cars were in the lot, how many empty spaces in the lot, and they measured gaps in traffic. In other words, how long would you have to wait to get out of the lot?
When there's
That
no one
kind of
there.
thing. And there were
Yeah.
plenty of gaps that day, and it was all good. So basically, the study.
Well, can we call a vote?
Wait, Chris.
Chris
Chris hasn't had a turn.
Chris who?
Okay, yes, the traffic study is totally inadequate, and in my opinion, that we don't need to go any further than there. As you've already discussed, the day they chose, that traffic study was done in November of 2012. The tunnel did not open until March of 2013, as Dan pointed out. I find this traffic study irrelevant if it does not include tunnel traffic. I mean, and this traffic study was done at about the same time by the same company that did the traffic study for Big Wave, which I pointed out during the Big Wave agenda item, that they also did not consider new traffic from the tunnel. So right there, those two reasons, the reasons you guys mentioned, this negative declaration, I'm totally negative on it. So that's point one. Point two, in section 6, land use and general plans on page 43, it states that it would not result in impacts from more than 50 people congregating at one time because the restaurant already accommodates more than 50 people at dinner time. To me, that is a completely flawed statement because they are talking about new patrons at a different time of the day. There are going to be 50 new people congregating at this restaurant during daytime hours because they are putting in or having capacity up to 92 or whatever it was. So for this to be kind of waved away as, no new impact, there are going to be up to 93 new people heretofore not congregating here that would be congregating here, and to wave that away as, mitigated or a non-issue as it was stated in this document on page 43, I just find that wrong, if not worse than that. So to me, there's two specific points of this negative declaration is insufficient. And the final point that I have to make is a larger point, which has been talked about here, which is this document is full of statements of, there's this problem, but it'll be mitigated when the owner does this, and this. Okay, again, this document is already dead in the water to me because this ownership has shown repeatedly, including as recently as March 4th,
that they do not follow these guides. They do not follow what they're supposed to do. They say they're going to do something, they don't do it. They apply for the permit and then they go ahead and do it anyways. I am really against this because this negative declaration is a step in the process here, and one of the things that is going to happen in this process is all these violations are going to be back legalized as part of this overall agreement. And so therefore, this negative declaration goes nowhere for me because it's dependent upon all of these mitigating factors that the ownership is going to be required to do. Pages and pages, dozens of mitigating factors. I don't have any confidence that any of those will be done. And so then how does this negative declaration have any legs to it? If repeatedly the ownership has shown that they are not going to follow the rules, blatantly disregard the rules, or even just, decide they're going to do whatever they're going to do, and we've got pages and pages of mitigating factors that the ownership is responsible for, it's never going to happen. So, I mean, this document is built on a house of cards, in my opinion. And so therefore, I totally support this letter. I would have if it was me, I would have much stronger language, and so it's a good thing that you wrote it. I've only been, involved with this project for a couple months on the MCC, and I'm thoroughly frustrated with it. Not only the ownership, but the lack, as has been pointed out, the lack of enforcement. Again, reading the entire application, county planning over and over again tried to work out compromises and even talked among themselves of what can we do to get this thing to happen? What compromises can we make? And again, a compromise was made and then it was not followed through or completely overrun by the management. And so again, this negative declaration document full of mitigations, that's just words. That's going nowhere. And I don't believe in it. I don't believe that those mitigations are going to happen. And so therefore, to say that there's going to be this negative impact on the environment, but they're going to be mitigated by these things that the ownership's going to do, there's a total disconnect there of these are the important impacts to the environment you cannot assume that they will be mitigated by this whole list of things that the ownership has shown that they're not going to do anyways. So I totally support this letter, Lisa, an exceptional piece of work. And there's just, and really, like, there could be pages more. I'm sure you stopped it at some point, but
3 pages.
Yeah, I'm sure at some point in your hourly, total, you're like, okay, that's enough hours on this. But and I have a lot of other things that I could have mentioned. But the last thing I want to say, with regard to this negative declaration document on a larger kind of view, is this business, this particular thing, in addition to being along the Cabrillo Highway County Designated Scenic Route, it is the first thing people see when they come out of Devil's Slide. It is the first commercial establishment, and therefore, in my opinion, has to be held to a higher standard with regard to the LCP and any other ordinance or codes, because it's the first, it sets the aesthetic for the coast side when people come in. And if that business is allowed to disregard ordinances and guidelines that have, and judgments that have been placed on it, and then furthermore violate aspects of the LCP, I mean, it's the first thing people see. So it just sets a tone for the whole coast side, and again, it lets people see that we don't really need to. There's no. The CCC has no enforcement on it. I read the doc. Please, I ask you again, please, won't you please listen to us? It's not working. That's not enforcement. There is no enforcement. The ownership knows this, and therefore I feel like they're more than willing to accept this negative declaration document because, we'll be discussing this 10 years from now, how they didn't do this, this, and this, and now we're trying to set up another agreement to back legalize that so that they can then expand it to be open 24/7. I mean, so.
I'm glad to see that you don't feel very strong.
Yeah, I love La Costanera. I've eaten there many times. I take out-of-town relatives there because I like the food and I like the view. And I don't have any, ill will against this ownership as far as the success of their business. But there is an agreement in place from 1977. It has been upheld at least once, if not more times. There's no reason. There's no reason that they've shown to support any expansion of hours, and this negative declaration is not sufficient.
Thank you. Are we ready?
I'm sorry, this will be super quick. I just have two, because I think it's great the way it is, but I would like to make two small, but I think significant requests.
What?
The first is based on one of your comments at the bottom of page 2, the very last paragraph. You have written here, advertising banners are prohibited in the scenic corridor.
Yeah.
Can you underline that? Is that not a, because you know how you had said it's.
I understand that you like to call attention to these things, but the underlining in this letter was, as I said, it was to underline what the people who understand what
Right.
they're looking for and comments on a neg deck, it's what they want to see.
But that's not one, they're prohibited in the scenic corridor?
No,
They're all
not-
aware
no,
of that.
They know
Okay.
that. They know
Okay,
that.
then one last question is, to Chris's point, do you think that it is important to add one last sentence about the traffic study and to the effect of, additionally, it was conducted prior to the opening of the Devil's Slide Tunnel, which has brought about an increase in traffic?
I think
I
it's,
don't think we need to.
personally, I don't think we need to. I think it might carry extra weight. I agree, it's actually not substantive, but it might actually carry extra weight for getting a good study.
Okay.
So did you say they had already agreed to the new study, Lisa?
No.
No. So it might be worth adding just, 5 or 6 words about, in addition, the
It's
tunnel
okay
opening
if
is
they don't do a new study. It's okay if they just deny it. Yes. Don't really
I
need
see
a
what
new
you're
study.
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. We're trying to get the neg deck set aside,
Yes, so
and then
this-
the rest of this
right.
becomes.
Now, what is the
Okay.
motion
So
we have
can
on the floor?
The motion was to approve the letter drafted.
So we had several requests for amendments.
One we granted was to underline, of course, the underlining that Aaron requested the first time.
I like it.
And let's just leave it at that.
Okay.
Can we vote on that?
I'm fine with that.
As the maker of the motion, that's fine with me.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion, the letter is approved unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
This is a good point. I totally lost sight of the fact that we're responding to a neg deck. I was like, oh, I got all
Gotta
wrapped
hang
up
on
in
to
that.
that thought. Okay.
Lisa's keeping us on track.
She's doing good, yes.
And if we missed anything, I'm sure Committee for Green Foothills will catch it in their letter. So, agenda item number 5, council activity. Does anybody have anything to report? Seeing none, I do. So, parallel trail funding. I attended the TA board meeting on March 6th regarding Measure A funding for the southern segment. And there was, I thought it went very well. There were other people on the TA board who were supportive of what Don is, obviously has been working to, and there was also apparently already $350,000 that appeared to be able to be grabbed from something, and so that just leaves $150,000, and basically we're optimistic that the funding can happen from that source for the southern segment. The likely funding source for the northern segment in Montero and Moss Beach, as you know, we had thought that would come from Safe Routes to School, which no longer exists. The alternate funding source is called the Active Transportation Program, and there is a call for projects opening March 21st, due by May 21st, so that's good. There'll be an application put in and start that moving for the northern segment. We could wait years for a call to projects, and there it is. So that, and the other thing is, as Sabrina mentioned when she was here, the Harbor District has gotten a proposal from one consultant on doing their strategic business plan, and I looked it over. She did send it to me. If you're interested, I'll send you a copy. I didn't know whether it was available for release to the public, but in the proposal, they talk about having a strategic business plan advisory committee, and so if the Harbor District does hire these people, I think we should write a letter and request to have a seat on that committee.
Absolutely.
So, nobody else? on this item. So, future agendas. We have LED street lighting on March 26th. Nothing else. On April 9th, removal of 7th Street fence. We're going to have county people come out and talk about what they're going to propose for the guardrail or whatever they're going to do there. And a rodenticide presentation that Aaron's organizing. I had asked if anyone wanted, does anyone want to request candidate forums for the primary election? I don't think we've done that in the past, but, so nobody's begging for it? Okay, great, that's fine with me.
Arrange that, sir.
I did get a request from Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District who would like to come and make a presentation on their, what do they call it, that they just completed their vision plan or whatever it was?
The bond measure to support the vision.
No, this is it's about, they want to explain what the content of the vision plan and explain about the bond measure. So they haven't given me their preferred date, but that will happen sometime. The ballots are mailed out on May 5th, so you really you can't delay much beyond that. And that's all I have. Does anybody else have anything for the agenda?
I do have one question. The gal who's coming out to speak from Raptors Are the Solution is coming out, as I explained to Lisa's coming out from Berkeley, and she's taking Bart out, and so I have to pick her up at Daly City and then take her back again. And because she's going to be presenting second, can we limit comments to 3 minutes and then wrap up by 8 o'clock on the first part of the agenda? Otherwise, I would prefer to reschedule her to a day when she can. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I don't want to have her like miss a Bart.
I understand.
or
I'm
whatever.
thinking it might be best to reschedule it because the 7th Street fence with county council and Peggy Jensen and somebody from DPW coming out here, who knows what kind of questions, and you don't want to, try and shut that down.
Okay.
It's
That's
not-
fine. I just didn't want to, because I don't want her to be sitting there going, I gotta, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So touch base with her and her.
Okay, for now, I will tentatively say that 2 weeks, what is that, the 23rd?
Okay.
April 23rd?
That'll probably work, since we're not going to have candidate forums, so we won't be backed up with that kind of thing.
Okay.
All right.
Question about the agenda item, the LED lights. How did that come up? Was there a letter from the county? How
Nicholas called me, and he said that they would like to put this on our agenda, and basically, the supervisor, they're looking into upgrading to LED lighting in all the unincorporated areas, which are mostly on the coast side. And basically, this agenda item would be an introductory community discussion about, how you feel about this and describe what's proposed. And what he said is basically the advantages to the LED lighting are that it saves energy, it saves money, and the color spectrum that they have now is like moonlight. And I thought that would appeal to people who are all about our rural community, and if it gave a color. And by the way, check out Pillar Point, where the radar station is. Look at it at night, because they used to have those halogen lights strung along there, and it's different now.
And they're not making it, though.
Yeah, they fixed all the valves.
They're LED, and it's a different color spectrum, and they're more recessed, so it's not as glaring as you look at it. I think it's much improved.
Okay.
But Nicholas was saying what he would like to do is maybe get a few installed in each town so people get a sense of it. But anyway, it's an introductory conversation. It came to us from the county.
Okay, I'll be very interested in finding out more about it.
I would like to make a motion to
Wait,
adjourn.
hold on. I know we're running late. I need to get some feedback from the group on this, because I told Lisa I'm trying to develop an agenda item around the GSD to CSD issue, and then we got the letter from MROSD, and so now we have 2 things on the June ballot that deal with acquiring or either open space or parks and rec. And so, to me, that's a critical mass. And what I'm trying to formulate, and if you have any advice for me, well, I'd like to have within the next, I had my dates here, but I don't have, oh, here we go.
By the way, Chris, I want to point out, I do not believe MROSD bond is going to be on the June ballot. They have not submitted to the county as far as I know. And it's-
Oh, really?
I think it is.
Yeah, I thought the letter that we received.
Okay, I thought that they had not made it before.
It's in the, actually, it's in the paper today.
Okay. My mistake.
So what I'm thinking is I would like to have, I guess, one agenda item at two different meetings. And one would be, and I've got a tentative date of April 9, which I know is coming right up, and that would be having somebody from GSD and somebody from MROSD come and just give an informational presentation. I don't want any campaigning or any like, we've got to do it because of this. I just would like an information. This is what we are proposing. This is what's going on the ballot. As an informational presentation to the community, because I do feel that I'm concerned of both of these issues being on the June ballot. I want people to be fully informed. So if we had an informational agenda item on April 9, and then the following month on May 14th, an agenda item requiring a action by the MCC, and that would be, I would write a letter for each one, and the MCC would approve the letter based on.
Who's the letter to?
Be to, that's the question that you and I were discussing.
So-
A general statement.
Does just MCC
So I
taking
know that
a
the group
position?
that is independent of the GSD, that is campaigning
Yeah.
for the conversion, would like the MCC to endorse it, but I don't think we can endorse it, but posting it probably is a very reasonable thing.
Well, I've talked to those people, and that's what I was saying. I want somebody from GSD and somebody from MROSD to make an informational presentation. I do not want anybody from any supporting campaign group, because I want this to be informational, because then at the next the next meeting where we have this agenda item, yes, I would, and Lisa and I briefly discussed this, right now, I don't want to do any campaigning for any group that's advocating for pro or con on this GSD to CSD. But I do feel that it's important to the community and us as an elective advisory council to both the Board of Supervisors and the community. I feel that after we have an informational agenda item, that then we would come back and I would write some kind of letter. Again, I don't know to who, but I need to figure that out. And if you have thoughts, I'm listening. Some kind of statement from the MCC about these issues. And I think that that's a legitimate position for the MCC to take. And if it's voted, down and we don't want to support that, it's fine. But I think that after an informational agenda item and then a discussion, it's legitimate for the MCC to have a public position on whether this is something that they would support for the community.
I agree. And I would suggest that you have Chuck Duffy as the person, because he's not, he doesn't take, he's a
not
general
elected.
manager.
He's
so
not elected official.
He's their manager, so he just provides information.
Yes.
And his stuff is just informational. He knows the line, he's experienced enough, so that would be my suggestion.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the MCC has already wrote a letter in support of.
They wrote a letter of getting it on the ballot, of having LAFCO approve it to put it on the ballot, but not in support of the actual.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It would be the
I had that
same
exact
wording.
discussion with some of the folks.
Well, I mean, the wording there is to get it on the ballot, and now it's a different situation.
Regardless, I'm full support of more discussion on it, more dialogue. Absolutely.
The community knows nothing about this.
Right.
So whether we took action back, who knows
Right.
how long ago, I'm in total agreement, there's gotta be education.
So I love the idea of having informational discussion on the ballot, on the agenda. I'm not sure that it's in our purview to make a recommendation to the electorate, which is what it sounds like we're about to do.
Basically, for the people who live in Lost Beach, Montera, to recommend that the people in GSD tax themselves for this seems odd.
Oh, excellent point.
But this is a larger issue than just,
Well,
again, this is a.
Talking about the issue I think is in the purview of this.
Yeah, I struggled with this when we wrote the letter to LAPCO. But
Yes, I remember this now.
That's okay, because this isn't about the actual ballot. We're just saying, let the people in GSD decide. But I don't, it doesn't feel right for me to endorse this if I'm not in the district.
If you're not in the district, yes, okay.
And-
It's a
and
tax
given-
measure, basically.
And given that we're an advisory body
To the Board of Supervisors.
it seems even less appropriate. I actually had this exact discussion with several people that were part of the effort, so.
I totally understand that position, and my position is that who is better informed in the Midcoast of this specific issue than 6 or 7 of the people in this room right now? And these are people that have been elected by people on the
I
Midcoast.
would have to recuse myself from that, and so would Dan, because we're both part of that campaign.
Um,
I don't know that that's.
Are we mixing things
I think
here?
we
Because what
would.
you make me think about is almost like, well, here's consolidation. Here's the different things you're gonna hear.
No. Consolidation is not on the ballot. Consolidation is not an issue. I know, it's not officially, it's not anywhere in the wording of this ballot item will it be on there. And so, what my position on this is, I do feel that the MCC has a role to play by providing leadership. And if we have an informational agenda item, and then we have another agenda item where the public can come and make all the comments we want, we listen to that, then we have a debate here, and if it gets voted down, so be it. I mean, that's
How about this?
that's how it works. And but also, I think that here are people that know a lot about the issue, and if we've done our due diligence and gotten information directly from the sponsoring organizations, then had a discussion, heard extensive public input, which I expect there would be, and then came to a leadership conclusion that, we support this as something good for the coast side. I don't see that people living in the GSD or not in the GSD on this board, I don't see how that affects it, because we are the elected advisory, we are the elected, the most direct elected officials for this area. I think leadership is part of being an elected official. I mean, the other elected officials take
So
positions on
Chris,
issues.
it's like being on a city council and recommending a bond measure in another district. Just doesn't, I mean, we can ask
I'm fine.
county council, but I guess, sorry to keep cutting you off, Lisa, but I guess we could have a straw vote right now whether people think there's any chance of passing that before we put that part of it on the agenda. Again, the presentation, I totally support.
I think the presentation could be expanded to be like tonight on Princeton. You have Chuck Duffy presenting the issue, and the council members and the members in the audience can ask questions and make their comments. And it's all, get everything they want to say out there, and it could just end there. I think if you wanted to take it one step further at another meeting to vote on something, I think some research on just how we've had recusals mentioned, we've had people living out of the area mentioned, whether it might be counterproductive if the vote went the opposite way we thought. But we can't just really discuss the meat of that here, but I think the first part of it, as far as informational, as we did with Princeton here tonight, we didn't weigh in on it. I thought it was useful, and I think that would be useful for the GSD issue.
As a theoretical point, let me ask you this. So at some point when a final plan is made for Plan Princeton, could you see the MCC writing some letter of support or non-support of that final
Yeah,
plan?
this wasn't the place. This was an.
No,
informational
I know,
plan.
but in the future, when there is a final plan.
Oh, yeah.
So I see this as a similar thing of like, this is the elected body for the coast side,
And
and
that would be a comment
This is
to
a-
the Board of Supervisors, and
Right.
we're an advisory body to the Board of Supervisors.
That's what we're here for.
I mean, I think theoretically, the letter could be addressed to the Board of Supervisors. We're their advisory council.
They got
Our
nothing
position,
to do with the outcome of this election.
it doesn't matter. Our position is this is a good thing, or it's not a good thing. We don't think it's a good thing. I mean, I'm not saying one way or the other where I hope the vote to
How
go.
about
I'm
this?
just saying I think
How
that
about
the
this?
MCC should show some leadership on this important coast side
All right.
issue.
We've agreed, I think we've have a consensus here, they would fine to have an informational meeting and
All right,
have
we'll
all
start with-
public comment that people want to say. You want to bring an agenda item with some different goal in mind, write it up, and we can put it on there if you like.
Yes, I will work on the informational agenda item first.
Yeah, I don't know if this helps, but from our bylaws, item 4 of our purpose, to assist the community in developing and expressing a long-range vision of the community which meets the goals of its residents for improved quality of life, protection of the environment, and sound economic planning. And I think promoting the parks is in alignment with that. So I think that we have a little time to kind of maybe iron things out, tune things, sharpen our thoughts, but I'm not unconvinced that it's not for us to make a position.
Okay.
Position on it.
Anybody have anything else to say? Can we be done?
No, you have nothing else to say.
We are adjourned.
Well, that was actually.
Wait just a minute here.
We are adjourned.
No, that's a real food for thought.
It's 9:48.
Oh, ouch.
Okay.